Ranger sold his wardrobe. The Lone Ranger sold his bad dog. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know, 'cause times change, I know.
On some days, he's more than humble. On some days, he's cold and mad, mad as hell. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Those lakes of golden water, those lakes of gold are all running out. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, you say. On some days, he's more than humble. On some days, he's cold and mad, mad as hell. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Those lakes of golden water, those lakes of gold are all running out. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, you say. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, you say.
Come along, join the fun, in a world where adventure is never done. Every corner we turn, a new friend in tow. It's time to start the magic on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show. See the sights, so much to know. Across the lands, together we go. Hand in hand we join the flow. Discover wonders in the Globus Show, where every day's a brand new episode. start the magic on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show. See the sights, so much to know across the land. Together we go, hand in hand we join the flow. Discover wonders in the Globus Show, where every day's a brand new episode on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show.
Yo, 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 yo. What up, what up, what up, what up? What up, Twitch? What up, Aswarp? What up, Cosmic? What up, bots? What up, lurkers? What up, tiny people in my chatterino? Your boy. And it's Stampy. And Stampy says, I know those words. What up, Nero? I know those words. You should give me treats. Treats. What up, Ribbons? I definitely have to upgrade to the better cam. I'll do that tomorrow. Treats. What up, Pharaoh? What up, Brazo? Your boy's gone corporate. Oh, your boy is tired, yo. Your boy is tired. That's it. That was treats. That was plenty of treats. That was sufficient treats. Your boy is tired. With a capital I-ed. Up at 4 a.m. Technically out of bed 3:45. Start the coffee. Hit the snooze button. Hit the snooze button. Hit the snooze button. Get up. Go to work.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Equilibrium 5651. Thank you for the gift sub to the community, and I'm sure that Plush Sabers, which is a great name, appreciates it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ribbons, it's a particularly unholy hour for those of us who once had a philosophy that no good day started before 2 p.m. in the afternoon. What a long, strange trip it's been. What up, Plush Sabers? I hope you enjoy the sub. You watch the robotics expos? We watched the one, the most recent one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Engine AI with their T800, like just coming right out and saying it and like that. It was kind of wild. It was kind of wild. Yeah, no, this will be an interesting year at CES. All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out places. Hang my head, I want to drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I ever had. Can't remember the rest of the words, but what up, X1011? Mad world. Oh, at least no one can complain it's AI. Sure they can. Sure they can. Come sit in my lap? Or you just want more treats? All right, so yeah. We're gonna do a couple of things and then we'll get into the rest of this. We've got what up, humanity? What up, humanity? I'm the same person I ever was, just with less beard. You'll be back like before. I will fight the fight and win the war. Huge manatee hitting that 2-year mark. I appreciate you, homie. I appreciate you. If no one else does, know that I do. What up, Tinker? Yeah, no, it happened. It happened after what was it? Tuesday. Tuesday stream, shaved. Wednesday worked at night, didn't stream. Thursday streamed. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everyone I didn't see previously. What up, Digital? Did I say what up, Digital? Let's Sons of Anarchy, more co-carnage. I don't know what co-carnage is. What up, Ben? Let's take a look here. We've got a new GT. I did not shave the cat. Not sure I can still be an elder without long beard. It's something it's something I wondered as well. Should I have changed the name to something else? You'll be back like before. I will fight the fight and win the war. Becca, back for 17 months. How you doing?
Unfortunately, nobody seems terribly interested in funding my research, but
I am. I will fund your research.
Yeah?
Yeah. That'd be cool. Yeah, no, I mean, I look younger. Yes, a person can be considered an elder without a long beard. The connection between the two is generally cultural, traditional, or rooted in the etymology of the word, not a universal requirement. That sounds like AI. Did you AI that? AI news or something related so the vibe fits the name and it's easier to SEO. I don't know. I am Tinker. I'm just like I never was in it for the money. You know what I mean? Not about, I'm just doing my thing. And if people want to come along, then come along. Stampy. What up, Stellar Wingman? Proof of Stampy. Stampy. Stampy, your fans request your presence. Just smoke the weed, kids. I think he's eating regular ass food. What up, Leftist Corp? It's on there. It's on there. There is still beard. Might try to do some more content-y stuff for that reason. Would be nice to have discussions with new people. Hard line to walk. Yeah, it's just like I'm not. What up, Chef? I made a claim a long time ago that you either chase the money in the algorithm or you stream what you want to do, right? And I am hardcore. I don't edit my videos. I just post them to whatever's and just do the thing. I'm not. There he is.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Equilibrium, I don't know who you are, but you're awesome. Just because I'm not chasing the money does not mean I'm immune to its effects. I do live in America. Your dad will be proud of me. Cool. So there's a Stampy. Oh, it's a butthole. Stampy's gonna get an upgraded camera on Saturday.
And now it's time to pop up number 7. Oh, that's a butthole.
What up, Noah? Yeah. 300 years younger. I mean, there's something to be said for that, right? There you go. I can't prove it any more than I've proved it, right? James says I'm still a wizard because wizarding has nothing to do with the beard. Pharaoh says I'm still the elder. What up, third? Says I'm still an elder. I'm gonna believe y'all. No, what was really scary, Digital, is that Old Lobster has an AI video that removed, or an AI image that removed the beard. It is startlingly good. Like, it is really close. that kind of freaked me out. Like, real close. Yeah, but that's the thing, Warp. I have no equals. What up, Tech Bro? So now that the gang's all here, and like 6 minutes before 4:20 somewhere, Mountain Time, I think. And again, Cayman Jack grilled pineapple margarita. You should sponsor me. That's neat.
You'll be back like before. I will fight the fight and win the war.
Sieg, Fang, architect of sin. What was that? 7 months. Thank you, homie. Thank you, chat fam.
Okay, I was gonna drink a water.
Oh, really?
Listen how much water I drank.
Wow, that's really cool, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Everything in moderation. All right, y'all want to do some content? What up, Adam? Plant-human hybrid cells. But why?
A group of researchers decided to make plant-human hybrid cell lines. Why did they do this? That is a very good question. There has been a lot of research like this in recent years, like putting chloroplast in a hamster cell. Why would you want chloroplast in a hamster cell? I don't know, but it does tell us about maybe how we got mitochondria, and it's also just kind of cool. Also, if you really wanted a photosynthetic hamster...
Well, the thing, Tech Bro, is that in addition to talking about AI, I am amusing and clever. And the community is top-notch.
You couldn't. It would be a hamster with diabetes, essentially. You don't need extra sugar being made for you. That's even if the rest of the cellular machinery plays nice with chloroplast. It's not useful. But it is cool. It wasn't really justified all that well, but one might parse that this could tell us an awful lot about hybridization events, assuming humans and plants ever hybridized. Let's talk about it. One of the big questions that people have been trying to answer for quite some time is why we have extra DNA that doesn't seem to do anything. At some point, they thought that roughly 70% of our genomes was just junk DNA. It's even been postulated that it provides some benefit because mutations can happen anywhere, but if you have lots of stuff that's not being used, you have a lower probability of mutations happening somewhere useful. But yes, over the years, we figured out that junk DNA does, in fact,
Thank you for the hype train, everybody.
do stuff. It has stable ends to our chromosomes. It can even be spliced differently, so different parts of a gene can be used. But what happens if we take a plant genome, so something that's potentially much larger than our genome, and something that we really shouldn't be using, and just stuff it in our cells? What happens then? So they took the genome of Arabidopsis. It is a legume, and it's a commonly used model organism, so it's studied a lot. It's used for kind of the same reason that human cells are used for a lot of research, because we just know it really well. They took roughly half of the plant genome and stuffed it into chromosome 15.
Tomatoes are related to deadly nightshade, so you shouldn't trust them.
In a human cell line. They also added 2 extra...
That's how science works, according to people who don't understand science.
Genes. One of them was green fluorescence plasmids, because that's going to show up under fluorescent
That was a great emote to gigantify, because it looks gorgeous on my screen.
light. The other one was a blastocytin gene. This was inserted from the plant chromosome and provided resistance to an antibiotic, blastocytin. This would tell us how well is
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I've seen the documentary.
Genes are maintained and if they are expressed, and they actually were. At around day 60, the human plant cells still had about 45% of the plant DNA still there, and it started to just speckle itself throughout the human genome. By day 300, there was only about 12% of the plant genome left. Though it wasn't being used, it really wasn't useful to the cell, so it just yeeted it. This has been a big conversation in bacteria, because bacteria have such quick cell cycles that if they don't need something, they're unlikely to carry it, but that was not the thought about people cells, and it seems, yes, it is too. Green fluorescence plasmid did remain, as did blastocytin resistance, which is not surprising because they just filled the place with blastocytin, so it did need to maintain it. It even duplicated it over time as the cells divided. But yes, most of the plant genome was no longer present. What did we learn? That tossing a massive amount of DNA from a foreign organism is not likely to be maintained. There's issues like how well the chromosomes line up. There's also issues with whether or not it's being used at all. It is interesting that it got splattered over other chromosomes, though. Basically, your DNA has all these repair mechanisms, and if you have all these random pieces of DNA just lying around, yes, it's going to try to put it where it should maybe go, and it might get it wrong. This is pretty comparable to just blasting cells with radiation. Everything deteriorates, and it tries to put it back together, and it doesn't do a very good job. This might also give us information on how genetic engineering is going to work.
No, her content is fairly good. That's why we watch it. And GT is pretty much the only one who's consistently talking about brain organelles, right? Like, that's it.
If we're putting huge swaths of DNA that really shouldn't be in a genome in, your body might not keep it unless it has a reason to. This also interestingly tells us that human cell lines can behave very similarly to bacteria in culture, which I really would not have.
Speaking of dystopia, so here's an interesting thing. I saw that His Royal Largeness tried to, or got another test, right? And so I went back to the original meme of person, man, woman, camera, TV, right? And I tried to make a song out of it. And there is something in Suno that it won't do it. It'll make a song, but it's just an instrumental. It won't say the words. It is so weird.
Guessed. A lot of the things that I have learned when I was first taking biology and genetics and molecular
If anybody can, please prove me wrong, because I'd like to see that.
biology seem to be now questioned. But a lot of that is my trying to explain why they did this, because just from reading the paper, the justifications were really not clear. They did it, it worked, it was interesting, and isn't that pure science? No, it's not. I really would love it if we did more stuff just to see what happens, but you're supposed to have a hypothesis, have a prediction, and a reason. Does this help medicine? Not immediately. But does it?
I don't know. I feel like there were a bunch of old school scientists who just did shit to do shit, and then maybe then tried to figure out why it was happening. Like, do an experiment, then make a hypothesis. I'm not saying it should be the common way we do science. I'm just appreciating the concept.
Does it cure cancer? Not at all. But does it open up the path to plant-human hybrids? I mean, yeah, I guess. If you want to, or if you really want blastocytin resistance. Actually, there's a pretty good argument
Johnny Prophet, I did indeed trim my beard.
there. If we presently are affected by antibiotics that would otherwise get rid of microbes that we can't really tolerate, maybe we could engineer people to tolerate them. That is a pretty decent way to use this. But I might be grasping at straws. I hope you enjoyed this review. Follow for more.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Waku.
I mean, Raza, it's a thing. So this, for those of you who don't know Dr. Waku, this is Dr. Waku. We have watched a fair amount of Dr. Waku. We haven't watched as much lately because they're doing like 45-minute interviews and not posting as frequently. But I did come across the Dr. Waku Christmas Special 2025. So here we are.
An AI safety researcher. It's been a few months since my last video, so I wanted to just bring you all.
And that made me feel good. Like makes me feel good because I thought I might have missed their videos. And it turns out, no, they just weren't posting.
All up to date. And yes, Dr. Waku is still alive. I'll talk a bit about what I've been up to and highlight some exciting news for my content creation journey. As always, this video will have 3 parts: personal update, what the channel is for, and encouraging community. Part 1, personal update. Well, where have I been? As you might have guessed, I've been pretty busy with work. And work for me doesn't just mean the job that I'm paid for, but many other things besides. So I was focusing on 3 areas. First, I was spending time becoming a technical researcher in a subfield called AI safety. AI safety is somewhat similar to cybersecurity, which is what I did my PhD in, and so I'm used to how research works in that field. But it was still a lot of work, and there were a lot of new concepts to learn because machine learning as a whole was pretty new to me. Second, I was also trying out different roles in AI communications. That is to say, communicating about AI risk to the general public. I'll talk more about one aspect of that in a minute, but I did want to highlight that I finally met Rob Miles in person. And if you don't
I'd like to meet Rob Miles in person.
Know him, Rob Miles is probably the most famous
Dr. Waku is wild like that.
AI safety YouTuber. His content is aimed at people who want to actually understand the technical details and become AI safety researchers themselves rather than just the general public. But he's still very well known in his space. And in case you haven't heard of him before, check out the link to Rob Miles in the description below. The third thing I was doing is learning a lot about the AI safety community and how people work and interact. The first thing to know about AI safety is that people generally live in a handful of cities around the world, especially San Francisco and London, and they actually co-work together with other people in AI safety. It's kind of unusual, but it's very nice. So this year I visited 3 top AI safety hubs to talk to a lot of people. Actually, I went on a lot of trips. I think I attended a total of 8 different conferences just in AI safety. And I also participated in 2 AI safety programs and co-taught another one, in addition to making 4 trips unrelated to AI safety. So I was basically flying all over the place this year. Now, just recently, I switched away from the job where I was trying to do a lot of technical research myself, and I now have a new role which focuses on advising people on AI safety research. This is great for me because I can be involved in many different projects at once. And any limitations I might have, like being able to use my hands, if you're new to the channel, I have a medical condition, so I can't type too much on computer keyboards, or limitations about being new to machine learning. Those don't matter so much when you're working with someone else who does have those skills. So overall, I think this is one of the best use of my skills that I could imagine at this moment, and I'm very thankful to have this new position. You might
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Equilibrium gifting out another one, this time to Cosmic, who definitely deserves a sub. If anyone was going to get a gift sub, it should definitely be Cosmic. Thank you again.
ask, what about YouTube?
No, you don't give the AI guns as warp. Come on.
And like my previous position,
oh, he's a big chunky boy. Well, you jumped up in my lap.
where I asked my employer to allow me to spend time creating YouTube videos. I did the same this time, and they said, okay. I feel like in my last job, it worked moderately well. I had enough time.
What up, Fembox fan?
Especially early on, to make quite a few videos, and I did some interviews as well. But then once I started to get involved in a lot of projects in parallel, and once the travel really started kicking up, I just had to take a pause on YouTube creation. I'm trying to allocate the space and time to ensure that I can keep making videos on a regular basis now in this current position. And it's still very important to me because I see my work as part-time researcher, part-time communicator. Part 2, what the channel is for. A lot has happened in the last year. The original purpose of my YouTube channel was basically to inform people about how AI and future technology would impact their lives. The original purpose for me was to practice teaching and to learn about AI because I was having to read papers and articles about it to make the videos. But now I have shifted professionally into the AI safety field. Researching for YouTube videos is not necessarily the best way for me to learn new topics now. However, I can still make videos based on what I'm seeing, what I'm doing, or already know in the space. And I'm hopeful that those will be just as interesting and useful. So if I had to define my new purpose, I think it would be to educate people interested in AI about AI safety by doing what I always do, clear synthesis of complicated topics, offering a balanced perspective, and trying to excel at the research depth and the presentation style. And this is the key point. I want to communicate this information in enough detail that you, my viewers, can go and explain the same topic to somebody else. Of course, I hope you will also refer them to my video, but if this topic comes up at the dinner table, etc., I want you to be well informed and able to talk about it. Hopefully over...
Who's out there practicing their tic-tac-toe to defeat Whopper? I think you want to talk about the loss of skills, which are important. Almost none of you are playing tic-tac-toe anymore.
Over time, the videos become a trusted reference. And even if you're a researcher or a journalist, when you're at that dining room table with your family, you might point to these videos as the reference that you should go to learn more about AI safety. After all, widespread public familiarity with AI safety creates the political conditions that might enable changes to happen. Because right now, AI is not very safe, unfortunately. And we can change that, but it will take policy changes, regulatory changes, and probably societal changes as well. It's a huge and thorny problem. Now, I know that you, my audience, may not be all that interested in AI safety at the moment because many people came along with me from AI in general. But I hope that you'll join me on this journey and that you'll watch some of my videos and perhaps learn to think about the safety of AI systems in a more nuanced way. Right? Nothing is black and white, especially something as complicated as making sure an AI system does what you want and not necessarily what you say. So in addition to continuing my channel in this slightly different direction, I'm also trying to do outreach to audience members that are even less familiar with AI. And to do that, I'm starting a new secondary YouTube channel, which is focused on YouTube Shorts. The tentative name for this channel is called Steering the Frontier.
I get it. And I appreciate the fact that it's a secondary channel.
It might still get changed, who knows? If you feel like you are less familiar with AI, and especially if you are actually likely to watch shorts, I know that not much of my audience actually watches shorts based on the analytics, then I would love if you could subscribe to that channel, share it with somebody. We will be starting to put shorts videos on there early in January. And the goals of that channel are to raise awareness about AI safety issues, provide a community with a shared mission where each person can offer their unique experience with AI. And here's the real difference with that channel. First of all, I'm not very good at shorts. We know this from how well the shorts perform on this channel. And also, I'm really bottlenecked on my own time. So for this new shorts channel, I'm collaborating with a number of different people whom I recruited through AI Safety Camp, and we're going to be collaborating and working together to create those videos. So you probably won't see me talking all the time, but I'll be there in the background working on the video scripts, and I will occasionally film videos myself. After all, to have a shorts channel succeed, I think you have to do like 1 video per day, roughly, and I definitely couldn't keep up that pace myself. So we'll see how it goes. Wish us luck. Part 3, encouraging community. Something else I started very early on in this YouTube channel's existence was to create a Discord community because I wanted to really talk to my viewers and understand them and feel this sense of community. I think it was very successful for a while when I had multiple videos pretty close together that had blown up on YouTube. I didn't have time to participate in the day-to-day communications very much, but I did have occasional group calls where we would bring together people from the community and everyone could talk and say what was on their mind, listen to my perspective on something or ask me a question. And that will be continuing. We have a proactive admin there now, so it doesn't just rely on me for everything. So if you haven't joined already, definitely hop into our Discord. The link.
Maybe I was in there and there was at least one person who was pretty much dominating the conversations, and I don't know, it was a little off-putting, I would say is the nice way.
Link is in the pinned comment below. Another aspect of community that I've been engaging in more recently is mentorship. I'm helping people break into the field of AI safety, helping them with research, helping them with applications, helping them think through their career or their career transition. Because while there are a fair number of people that go into AI safety straight out of undergrad, if they've studied the right things, it's a very interdisciplinary field. And so you often get people coming in from later career paths, and bringing different experience that are trying to pick up AI safety topics. Anyway, if that's something you're interested in, definitely reach out to me on Discord and ask for mentorship, and I'll see if I can get you connected in the appropriate forum for that. A quick note also about anonymity. So as you know, I am anonymous on this channel. Dr. Waku is not actually my real name. However, I go to a lot of conferences in AI safety. So if you go to one, you're fairly likely to run into me as well. By all means, interact with me IRL, so to speak, in real life with my real name. I just ask that my real name not be linked with the Dr. Waku name in a public place, like in YouTube comments or on LinkedIn or something like that. Why am I anonymous? Well, it's a decision I made quite some time ago, and I've stuck with it. It can sometimes be pretty annoying having two different contexts in which I talk about or create things. But I also think it's useful because I seem a lot less biased. People can't point at my background or some detail about where I work and say, well, I don't believe this person because XYZ. I am here to just present you with information in an engaging and compelling fashion and not to get into arguments with people that then look me up in real life and start spamming me with messages or something like this. In general, I am going to start leaning on more people as much as I can.
We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Resistance is futile.
What up, Zekapistanis? Welcome in. Welcome in. Welcome in. Welcome in. Welcome in. What up, Zio? It goes well. It goes well. Y'all should be following Zach. One of my, one of the common places I can be found. Usually lurking, watching a extended video and learning shit. I also enjoy Zach's commentary. Just understand, if you come in and you're a first-time chatter, you're going to have to understand what the difference between private property and personal property is. You might be asked to define capitalism. It is a place you can go if you're new to that kind of thinking. Just act accordingly. What up, Breakbeat Kid? What up, Taos J? What up, Zach? We just finished with the latest Crash Course series they have on AI. I didn't know Crash Course had one. You might be asked what your passion is. Yes. But I recommend that you try it. There are videos you see there in the same way, if I may be so bold, in the same way there are videos that you only see on this channel, there are videos that you will only see on Zach's channel, as far as I know. Right? In addition to some of your favorites. Speaking of which, I've got second thought on the docket today. Let's finish up Dr. Waku.
To help with community aspects, as well as to help with some of the video creation, like for the shorts channel that I mentioned. So if you see some...
What up, Michael? I thought, just to reiterate, today, obviously, tomorrow, and then Monday, and then Tuesday, there will be a lot of content over the next week. After that, who can tell? But at least those days you will be getting. There will be, actually, I can tell. Yeah, so we got Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then looks like Monday the 12th, Tuesday the 13th, Thursday the 15th, Saturday the 17th, and then after that, I can't tell you.
Opportunity to help, and you think that you are perhaps the right person to help, then please volunteer. It takes more than one person to build a strong and thriving community. Finally, some trivia. It was almost exactly 2 years ago when I predicted that AGI would arrive in 2 years. It wasn't a very scientific estimate or even a very good one necessarily. I was just compiling what other people were saying at the time. And the problem with AGI is that there's no real strict definition of that term. It generally just means AI that's as smart as a human, but sometimes it's also taken to mean AI that can do any job that humans can do, and so it's a very fuzzy thing. I personally think that the models we have now, especially after the spate of recent model releases in the past few weeks should qualify as AGI. They probably are what we thought of as AGI before this whole trend started. But now, of course, as AI development has taken off, the goalposts continuously shift. And so people probably think, oh no, it's just a chatbot, it's just an AI, it's not AGI. I agree that it is not very agentic. It is not able to go out and do things in the world so well yet, which is why it hasn't had as much impact on job replacement as it might otherwise have had. But I think it should still count as AGI. What do you think? Do the latest Claude Opus or Gemini or even OpenAI models count as AGI? Let me know in the comments. Finally, in conclusion, I have been very busy with work trying to become a researcher, trying out different roles in AI risk communication, and mostly learning the AI safety community and how it works, and going to tons and tons of conferences. I do this, by the way, because I enjoy it, and because I think that one of my strengths is talking to people in real life and understanding them and what they're saying, and remembering them and trying to connect them to a network in the future. It's been very helpful for my career so far, and it lets me do mentorship, which I also really enjoy. So yeah, it seems to fit my life at the moment. Since most of what I think about these days is AI safety related, I am going to continue this channel, but I'm focusing it a little.
I mean, digital, like, isn't labor already commoditized? But that's, it could be, right? Like, that is what people are looking for now.
A little bit more specifically on AI safety. I'll try to do it in a way that my existing audience still appreciates, and you guys let me know if I'm succeeding
That is the general argument behind the whole thing.
In that or not. And I'm starting this new collaborative YouTube Shorts channel for all my hot takes on AI safety. And the working name for that is Steering the Frontier. So make sure you follow it if you actually like Shorts content. And finally,
I understand the skepticism, Raza. I can guarantee you, because of the nature of human beings, that there are a fair number of blind spots that humans, for whatever reason, right? There are a bunch of reasons. Some of them are tied to funding, some of them are tied to biases, that kind of thing. There are connections that could be made with the data that we already have that humans are currently not making, or at least not making publicly, right? I definitely think AI can make some of those connections. What happens beyond that? We'll just have to wait and see.
if you think you would be good at community building, or if you just want to participate in my community, then please join the Discord or whatever other things I spin up, because I realized something. In AI safety especially, you often hear about all these problems, and then the average person says, okay, but what can I do about this? And the answer is always unsatisfactory. It's like, well, you can go right to your political representatives so that they know that this is a problem and maybe that will impact things in the future. But actually, there's a much more concrete thing that people can do, which is simply to get involved in a community that's talking about this.
I'm with you, Ben. The first one was bad enough. The second one was almost a jump scare.
And sharing that, because together we can talk about all these important problems and bring light to them, so to speak, and have some fun while doing it. If you liked this video, or rather you want to see an actual video that teaches you something, then check out this previous one I made about why AI is not like other technology and will instead change everything. It's a good example of the type of video I want to make on this channel, so check it out, see if you like it. In the past, I always made these Christmas special videos, which were extra long, and released them around this time of year. I don't think this one's going to be so long, but at least you got to see something and listen to something perhaps over the holiday season. Well, that's all I have for today. Thank you very much for watching.
Up next, new Nate.
Bye.
Just picture this. You tell an AI agent to clean up the old docs on your laptop. You've given it access to the folders. It should be able to do that job well, but it does exactly what you asked, and that's the problem. It deletes duplicates. It organizes. It even writes a little summary of what it accomplished, and then you discover it removed the originals that you actually needed. The model didn't hallucinate. It didn't lack context. It did something even worse than that, and that's what we're going to talk about today. It took a fuzzy human request, it guessed a goal, it committed to it, and it executed confidently without checking back. In other words, it misread your intent, and that is a surprisingly common issue with models. That feeling of being smart, of being fast, and of being subtly wrong is not an edge case these days. It's actually the center of the agent problem. And that's why in late 2025, early 2026, it feels like a very strange moment.
And this kind of sounds like it's speaking partially to what we're talking about, Raza.
We're finally getting a lot of the big pieces for agents under control. We understand a lot more about tool calling than we did a year ago. We understand a lot about agent orchestration. We understand a lot about tracing, about evaluation harnesses, about durable execution over time. And yet we keep face planting on intent. We can now build systems that act, but we have to put a ton of work into making sure that they can reliably act with the objective that we set them. And that is why when we are building our tool calling, system following agents, we still have to put a ton into getting the intent defined through the prompt right. Have you ever stopped and asked yourself why it's that hard? Here's the root of why we're here. LLMs are actually incredible at producing plausible sounding continuations because that's what they were really trained to do. They were trained to predict the next token. And so that training objective creates a machine that is really, really good at an answer-shaped text in a piece of text that sounds like it should be right. And in pure chat mode, the world is pretty forgiving of that. If the model answers the wrong thing, you just correct it. And in many cases, it answers the right thing because the answer-shaped text is good enough. In fact, one of the things that has surprised me and almost everyone else in the last 2 years is that this whole idea of token generation turns out to be incredibly practical, incredibly realistic, incredibly useful at producing real economic utility.
And for those of you who wonder where the bubble bursting content is, we're going to get to it. What up, Mari? Welcome in.
And so this video is not about challenging that. We know that this whole idea of token generation fundamentally works. What we are asking ourselves is, what's next when it comes to agents? How do we start to get to intention in ways that help us to build more reliable agentic systems? Because in a chat, if the model answers the wrong thing, well, you just correct it. The conversation is inherently reversible. You just yell at it in the chat. But once you give the model tools, files, email, calendars, CRM code, maybe your credit card, the cost of a wrong guess spikes up real high. The tool use turns a fluent completion into a real-world commitment that the agent has made on your behalf. In a sense, it is writing to reality, not just writing to the chat. That is an inflection point that we're all living through, and it makes intent and the intent gap matter a lot more. And everything else is going so well. People are no longer hand-waving how agents work. They're actually able to build them. You can see it in how evals have emerged as a first-class discipline over the last 6 months. You can see it in how tools like LangChain and Langsmith have evolved over the last year into full-stack, traceable, audit-ready agent-building toolkits, and they're not the only ones. There's lots, like Google has their ADK. We are getting to a point where we have so many parts of the ecosystem in place to deploy agents reliably, efficiently, and at scale. So why, with all that progress, are we still wrestling with intent? Because intent is not in the text the way context is. And I'm going to say it again, intent is not in the text. Context is the literal content that we put in when we do context engineering. Entities, constraints, instructions, facts that we include. Intent is typically latent. It is our pride to do when instructions conflict, whether you want exploration from your agent or a decision from your agent. What you'd regret.
That was the cat. The cat skipped ahead and cranked the volume.
if the assistant guessed wrong. By the way, if some of this sounds like a prompt that you should write, that's a good instinct in 2026. We need to be writing prompts for our agents that do encode these things until we get.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Equilibrium with another gifted sub. Just eking him out one at a time. Why are you biting me? Are you a pet? What are you doing? Oh, never work with cats or children. Oh, Stampy has chosen violence. Bought me right in the forehead, too. I think he's just geeked out on catnip.
Get intent figured out. We need to be focusing on making intent not hidden, but super, super explicit, including all of those things that we can typically leave other humans to infer, like our priorities. If we're in a business meeting and we talk about priorities, we are typically saying the thing that needs to be said in the meeting, and then we're typically not needing to say what is second or third or fourth priority because everyone in the room can infer that. That kind of thing agents are bad at. LLMs are bad at. Humans infer stuff from sparse information really, really reliably. Effectively, we do a second pass.
And we've been talking about this since the beginning, right? The monkey's paw, the genie wish, all that kind of stuff. You're talking about something where you have to be, you have to know what you're talking about, right? You have to be able to express yourself so literally with no room for like interpretation. You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing. And I think there's value in that, right? When you ask someone something, when you are talking to someone about something, the idea of actually saying what you actually mean, as opposed to saying something and guessing that they are going to interpret what you're saying in the same way that you intended, that their mental model of a particular concept is the same as your mental model of a particular concept. Like, I think that there's value in being able to accurately describe what your mental model is, what the concept is, and then being able to share that with another person and receive it in return. When you're a manager or a boss, you learn this skill when you ask for something to be done and it's not what you meant. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I ask for one of two things when I ask the people who work with me to do something. I either ask them very short, specific tasks where I tell them exactly what I need, or I ask them a very open task that I don't care how it gets accomplished. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to get a phone call from any of the floor. One of the things that we do is that we make sure that all of like the different departments have stocked fridges. So like if you go to a hospital and they give you like a little juice or a snack or a can of pop or any of that kind of stuff, a company like mine does that. And I don't want a phone call from one of those departments that or a text or anything else. I don't want to hear from them at all, right? Because if I don't hear from them, that means everything's going as designed. So I don't want that phone call. If I get that phone call, I want you to resolve that issue so I can go back to not getting that phone call, right? Because I have already enough defined on my plate that I need to take care of over the course of the day, that you adding this particular issue back onto my plate is a problem. We have a process to resolve that issue. All you have to do is follow that process. We provide you with the data. This is how many juices belong in their little fridge. This is how many milks belong in their little fridge. This is how many sandwiches belong in their little fridge. All you got to do is go there, look, satisfy the criteria, and, and find someone there. And there's always like a nurse around, and you say, can you just sign this to show that I did all this thing? And then you bring that back and you put it on my desk, and I take that with all the other stuff and I put that in the bin in the dietary office, and everyone's happy, right? The papers have shuffled around, the food is available for people to use, all the things. Exactly, Pharaoh, right? I do not care. Right? If you can demonstrate to me that you can operate in an autonomous fashion, then I'm going to tell you, if I need to tell you what needs to get done in a particular circumstances, I'm going to say, I need to accomplish this goal, and then I'm just going to expect you to handle it.
Where we simulate consequences in social context, and then we come back with a priority list in our heads. It's one of the things that makes us a little bit magical. We can hear for
I think, Michael, that is a key point, right? Like, the models have been trained to provide an answer rather than seek to give you a correct answer that's in line with your actual intended question. You can get a model to do that. You can set up in your prompt for it to ask clarifying questions. This can also become annoying to you, right, with yourself, when you realize how far off from actually asking the question you wanted answered you are when it starts to clarify what the fuck you're trying to talk about. It's fascinating.
For example, make some quick pasta sauce, and we instantly infer that you're hungry. We infer you don't need a lecture, you just want a quick snack. We hear clean up the docks, and we can infer don't destroy anything important, to go back to the example at the beginning of this video. We can sense invisible.
Sure, but then you have to define what's important, right? Like, this is the thing. Different people regard different things as important. And if you're not clarifying, if you don't have a shared value system as to what is actually important, then something important will be lost, right? That's just how that works. My evidence for that is the world as it currently exists, right? Because the world as it currently exists has done a tremendous job of destroying the environment, which some of us value more than others, right? Like, this is what we've gotten down to. And if we had a shared value system about what is important, then we would not have gotten there. But we don't.
Guardrails, and LLMs need the guardrails to be visible. And so a lot of what we've been doing and talking about when we build agentic systems is essentially how you obsess over those guardrails and make them visible, obsess over them and put them into prompts, obsess over them and put them into evals, take your business logic and put it into code, not just into a prompt, and so that it's more deterministic. All of that is good stuff. All of that is important stuff to build agents. But I want to think a little bit more deeply in this video about intent itself and how we can start to solve that problem. Because if you step back, everything I just talked about is essentially us working around the intent problem, not solving it directly. And a lot of the most useful research in the last year is basically saying, stop pretending the model can read intent straight off the prompt. I'm glad we've got there. I think I could have told you that from the beginning of the year, but it's important that we understand that so we can take the next step toward fixing it. I think there may be a fundamental language mismatch here. We have built LLMs to do next token completion on human language, but real world human language is notoriously underspecified by default.
So one of the traditions that exists in my house from her parents is scratch off games at Christmas, right? That's what I'm doing here. I didn't scratch them off prior to now. They've been sitting on my desk here. I'm not entirely sure if I won nothing on this one or if I won $100. So I live in a a Schrodinger's winner of scratch off, Schrodinger's scratch off, where I may have won $100 and I may have won Buckus. What up, Dankness?
If you want reliable outcomes, the system is going to have to reduce uncertainty about the objective before it asks. In other words,
nah, Pharaoh, I'm going to exist in this superposition until I end up at the store tomorrow, and I'll just have them run it through the scanner, and they'll tell me.
It needs active task disambiguation, and human language optimizes in many cases for social cohesion and does not optimize for the kind of over-declarative specification that the model really needs. One of the directions that researchers are taking to address this is to formalize that task ambiguity and treat clarification as a design problem. You want to get the model to ask you targeted questions.
There you go, Raza.
That maximize information gain and narrow the space of viable solutions. This is something that you can start to simulate with a model when you're trying to clarify intent anyway. It is possible to bolt on a piece of the prompt and basically say, where you have lack of clarity, please ask me questions. I've gotten in the habit of doing this both with agents and also with chat. With agents, you have to build in response sets that help it to clarify the intent where it gets confused. You have to build in essentially a clarification loop into your agentic system. With chat, it's simpler. You just ask the agent or you ask the LLM, hey, is there something that is prompting you to perform in this way? Can you articulate your assumptions? And can you please ask me where you don't understand my intent?
Can you articulate your assumptions? One of the issues I run into, why I don't debate people is because you and I cannot have a debate on a particular subject unless we agree to the same presuppositions. And there's a strong chance that if we're debating, we have different presuppositions, right? Like, one of my most strongly held beliefs when it comes to presuppositions is that all humans have an inherent value and deserve life. And therefore, under those conditions, your system should provide them with food. People should just have food, right? Without in a system as advanced as we have with the capabilities we have and everything else. It's not like everyone actually has to go out and grow food. We have specialty systems and everything else, and it's the extractive process of other people's need to make profit that is preventing people from having food. So that, right? Like I'm not I think your system is flawed. So if you don't think people should eat, then you and I really have nothing to talk about.
That's usually a very productive line of questioning to go with. These days, LLMs do not do that proactively. I suspect by mid next year they will. For now, we have to nudge them to ask questions. A second line of attack treats intent as something that is probabilistic. Instead of asking the system to pick only,
we throw the problem, Ben, is not even that we make enough food. The problem is that we destroy food. We actively leave food in the fields, or it goes to market and then is destroyed, or like like my niece works for a let's say a donut and coffee shop, and that donut and coffee shop, because it's a capitalist organization and doesn't invest in a process to resolve this particular issue, at the end of the day destroys a bunch of donuts, right? And she understands that, like, why aren't we giving this to people? Like, why aren't we doing something with this? So at the very least, what she ends up doing is bringing home a box of donuts, right? And they are installing a voice and video system, and they are not going to be allowed to remove food from the premises unless they have paid for it. So even that small box of donuts, which again was going to go into the garbage and in no way impacted their profits, because at no time would I have gone and paid for these donuts, they are going to set up a security system to prevent that from happening. What up, Queer Sociology? Y'all should be following Queer Sociology if you weren't in here yesterday when we rated them. Longtime friend of the channel. So yeah, that's the thing that's happening.
One interpretation and roll forward. The approach essentially maintains a distribution of plausible goals based on the text it's received, and then updates it as conversation progresses. You can actually simulate that one with a chat. It's a little bit more difficult to simulate that one with an agentic system. I don't think you'd really want to, because most agentic systems are designed to be relatively predictable in outcomes. And in this case, what you have here is essentially a progressive intent classifier, where the intent is crystallized out of a probability distribution over time. You can, if you're trying to sharpen your thinking, simulate this with a good chat, though. You can talk with an LLM, and you can tell it at the beginning to hold multiple plausible interpretations of what you're trying to do so it doesn't jump to conclusions. And you can actually watch it start to crystallize and infer as you continue to have a conversation over time. Ironically, when I was doing research into intent as a preparation for this video, I had that kind of a conversation with ChatGPT 5.2 thinking, because I was trying to nudge it to not.
What up, Sir Didymus? Is that one of the more unforgivable positions for someone in food service, that someone feels that someone doesn't deserve food? No, it's a position held by people who believe that you should have to work in order to receive food, right? That is a prevalent condition in the United States, right? That capitalist sympathizers and whatnot think that if you do not work, then you don't get food. And the way they justify that to themselves is that they make a claim that it's a voluntary choice. You are choosing not to work. Therefore, their conscience, if they have one, is at ease because they didn't kill you. You chose to starve to death out of your own free will. Also, what up, homeless engineer? New Yale graduate gets hired to improve profits. The only thing the person can think of is tracking all donuts. Now we have craziness. Bro. An employee got fired for taking good food that was going to be thrown away by tossing it over the fence and getting it later. I can say this. I can say this. In my entire life, I have never once seen a single person steal food. Never saw it. It's a fascinating idea. I'm not endorsing it, but the business rationale is that giving away unsold food reduces paid demand because people may wait for what's being tossed instead of buying. They assume that would cost them more revenue than it saves. It also used to deter homeless people from staying nearby. True. Well, there will soon be a huge number of Americans not working due to AI rollout. There very well may be. And that's why it's topical.
Over infer from
topical and not political.
One or two academic.
I do not talk politics on this channel.
White papers and actually think more broadly. That is something that you need to learn to do so that you are not stuck yelling at your LLM about hallucinations when really the issue is an intent. Another approach is to essentially make this intent a separate document. And that can be very, very helpful in agentic systems because you can then have what we would call like an intent commit or a semantic commit that literally documents the intent as crystallized a format as possible. What are the goals? What are the failure conditions? What are the graceful fail conditions? What are the trade-offs that we make? What are the larger priorities here?
I love the idea of a graceful fail condition. Just that structure of words in a row makes me very happy.
All of that is documented in one place. If you take that approach, you end up in a position where you can actually...
Good on you, homeless engineer. That's called recycling. I was taught that recycling is a good thing.
Update your intent separately from the prompt, and you can understand very clearly where your intent takes the system and where you can version your intent over time if you change your mind, if you want to update the system and what it does, etc. I think that's very interesting because it turns intent into more of an interface and workflow problem, and it doesn't bind us to figuring out how model makers are going to solve this. Now, that being said, I do think that there is a lot of room to run on reinforcement learning for model makers in getting better at intent. Fundamentally, if we figured out models that can do multiple passes on token generation and infer, we should be able to use reinforcement learning techniques to help them to do second and third passes across sparse text and infer context and infer intent more reliably. I would expect gains there next year. And by the way, if you're listening to this and thinking more context will save us, we'll get a bigger context window, that can sometimes make things worse. Even if the user did express the real priority somewhere, models don't robustly use long contexts. They still have lost in the middle challenges. They still need a lot of good structure, a lot of good intent to navigate context well. And long context often embodies difficult and ambiguous trade-offs that we don't specify and that we leave the model to guess. This goes back to the larger insight. Andrei Karpathy called this out a few weeks ago when he observed that humans are very, very good at learning from sparse examples, and models need many, many more examples than humans to learn and tend to generalize much more poorly than humans do. In this case, adding the context is something where you would think as a human, you have way more than you need, you can generalize effectively. It sometimes leads to worse performance because the signal gets muddled. But let's zoom back to the practical reality. Builders still need to learn to ship agents, and we still need to compensate for weak intent interference at the moment. This is where I want to lean into the harness piece. Yes, you should be building evaluation harnesses. You should be running agents against curated tasks. You should be instrumenting your traces. You should be constraining your tool permissions. You should not be using too many tools with an agent. You should force an agent into a planning state. You can see that this mindset is starting to dig in, and I think is really, really important if you want to build real-time productive agents that scale. Think of it as a kind of production pragmatism for the first half of 2026. We can make agents reliable enough to ship now. We don't have to have the intent problem fully solved, even if it's something that I think we need to be more aware of and we need to not pretend is not an issue. I haven't heard enough conversation about it, and that's why I'm chatting about it in this video. The reason why I think we're near a breakthrough is because this is something that is clearly reinforcement learning susceptible, and it's something that we have a lot of the pieces of with inference and LLMs. We have a lot of the pieces of the agent ecosystem, and if we get this one piece on intent, it's a piece of jagged intelligence that unlocks a real breakthrough for us. And it's very laborious to work around right now. Like all of the things I talked about with harnesses, they're they're complicated to set up. It would be really handy if we could reliably trust an agent to infer intent and call tools appropriately with a lot less rigmarole. We're not there yet, but I think that the opportunity is too big for us not to chase it and get to it. And I suspect that a 2026 breakthrough is possible. I don't believe, even in 2026, that we're going to get to a models magically understand all intent moment. I think of it more as an always-on agent can routinely run cheap and intermediate checks automatically in the background that approximate a human second pass and only escalate to a user or escalate to a resolution loop when the uncertainty is high or it determines that consequences are very serious or irreversible. That would simulate intent well enough for us to be moving on with, even as we work on the larger problem. An interesting way to see where intent is going is to look sideways at the crypto community, where intents become a thing for basically the same reason that agents are difficult. Intents matter in crypto because actions are expensive and often irreversible. We're learning the same thing with LLMs and agents. Actions are expensive and often irreversible. So in intent-based DeFi systems, the user often has to sign an intent to trade that specifies constraints and desired outcomes, and then specialized automated solvers will compete to execute that trade. The whole design separates what you want from how it is executed. Look, it's not a perfect analogy. Crypto has its own issues, but it's a clue in the direction that we're going, right? When execution is high stakes with agentic systems, systems tend to evolve toward explicit intent representations and solver checker mechanisms to ensure that that intent is accurately translated. I think that we're converging on a similar solution in the agent world because we need higher fidelity execution in 2026. So if you're building systems, I would advise you start to think about how you can separate interpretation from execution in your architecture so that you can learn to inspect and test the model's understanding before it touches tools. Start to think about how to run your agent against eval suites that include ambiguous prompts on purpose, because the real world is going to be ambiguous. And you should be grading how the model reaches the final output and how well it handles ambiguity along the way. Agent behavior needs to be evaluated in tool use in multi-step settings under controlled conditions. I would also take adopting a disambiguation mindset seriously. And you can implement it relatively simply. When an action is destructive, have the agent know that and then trigger a surfaced interpretation and a clarifying question if multiple plausible meanings exist. Look, an example could be if it's deleting a record in your database, right? Maybe it needs to surface an interpretation and a clarifier to another LLM, or if the stakes are high enough, to a human. But the point is to start to align what we're learning about the importance of disambiguating intent with the way we design our agentic systems. And obviously, you're going to want to do this selectively. You cannot have the agent ask a question every breath, because then it removes the point of having the agent at all. You need to decide where the agent really needs to get intent right and where your agentic system alone can't carry that intent clearly. And then you're going to find out, okay, now we need to have a disambiguation loop here. This is what this loop looks like. This is why it matters here. This is why it's worth it. And then before you forget, make sure you externalize your intent as an artifact that you can update. Because the closer you are to having a sort of living requirements page or a living intent page, the more you're going to be able to build interfaces that actually drive quality over time. Because you're going to be able to say, it's okay if you change your mind. It's okay if you update your intent. Intent is a separate artifact in our system, and we can codify it really, really cleanly, and we can plug and play it as we need to. It opens up a lot of flexibility in your system design. I think looking ahead, the winners in designing agentic systems are not going to be the ones that have thousands of tools or the most tools. They're not going to be the ones that have put their agents in the most different places in the business even. They're going to be the tools and designers and systems engineers who are able to reliably design agents that can carry intent clearly all the way to executable work. I think we'll get some help from model makers on intent in 2026, but a lot of it is going to be on us, the builders. And I hope this video has given you a sense of how we can start to design for intent as a first-class object in agentic systems. Have fun.
Nobody knows what the future of AI really looks like, but no matter which way it goes,
I think that was a really good video. I think it was a really important video. It is explicitly stating some things that I think are important in this space, and you know, I hope more people are doing in the future. Excuse me. All right, how money works. If AI takes over, we lose our jobs, but if AI fails, we also lose our jobs.
It does seem like we have put ourselves in a position where, if AI fails, the entire economy collapses with it and we lose our jobs, but if AI succeeds, it will only be because it has taken all of our jobs, whether we like it or not.
In grade school, we got a lunch menu so we could choose the cheap school meal or bring our own. What if we scaled that up nationwide? Each day, everyone could get a free breakfast, lunch, and dinner with a menu mailed out that lists what's being served. Then people could choose the quick free option or pay for something more specific. I know it's not ideal, but it might work within the system we have. I don't see anything wrong with it. I put an AirTag on my job, so now I can find it if I lose it. How do you find it, though? You find it with your phone. But if your phone stops working, then you still have lost your job.
Our immediate economic future is riding on the success or failure of this technology. Just the top companies are on track to spend $400 billion on data center buildouts this year alone, and the entire stock market has clearly been buoyed by investor hype around what this technology could do at some undetermined point in the future. Now, that has done two things.
The only way you can really keep track of your job forever is to never leave it, right? As long as you have your hand on your job, no one can take it because you have your hand on it. So just work forever.
In the short term, trillions of dollars worth of data centers may or may not turn out to be a spectacular waste of money. But at least for now, they are providing tens of thousands of high-paying jobs to engineers, tradesmen, and technicians all across the country. The same goes for the stock market. These impressive gains may or may not be backed by sustainable fundamentals. But, at least for now, people who have seen their portfolios double in value over the last 3 years are feeling pretty good about treating themselves to a bit of conspicuous consumption, helping to keep the rest of the economy afloat. Now, I know the problem of our entire economy being kept alive by unsustainable capital expenditure and
that's a baller move, engineer. That's a baller move, right? I was let go from one job, right? And when I was let go from that job, the first thing they did, they left me unescorted to go back to my desk and gather my things. The very first thing that I did was I had created a whole bunch of systems and papers and files and everything else, and it was all stored in a single folder on my computer, and I deleted it. And then I packed my shit and I left. Maybe their IT department was able to save it for them. The IT department liked me. The IT department liked me so much that I was able to print entire RPG manuals that I totally bought legally and had on PDF legally. And I was able to print them on our work printers. And they never said word one because I was good with the IT department.
Questionable financial gains is not exactly shocking news to anybody anymore. In fact, if you're watching this video, there's a good chance your entire subscription feed hasn't shut up about the AI bubble all year. And in our defense, if this bubble pops, it will probably take the rest of the already shaky economy down with it. This also makes the fact that people are treating it like a foregone conclusion all the more dangerous. But perhaps...
Which again is a really fascinating thing to root for, right? What up, Dragon Wizard? Always be kind to IT. Always be good with the people who have the actual power in the business, right? That's all I'm saying.
We have all been missing the more important question, which is, what does a good outcome actually look like at this point? Is there any way that we could still quietly back out of this unscathed?
Google spending tens of billions of dollars to build 3 massive AI data centers. Economists are saying electricity prices are climbing more than twice as fast as inflation is.
Some projections show that spending may be fueling nearly half of this year's.
I don't think it's a win or lose proposition, engineer. It's not like one of them is going to disappear, right? I think it's more along the lines of that no matter what happens, they could be absorbed, right? OpenAI could be absorbed by another company. But like there's no reason that they can't continue to exist, and just different users use different tools for different reasons at this point in time.
Estimated GDP growth.
Tech companies just are cutting tens of thousands of jobs, and some of them are blaming AI.
They very well might, right? We'll have to see how it plays out.
Now they are pivoting capital away from labor.
There's Coke, there's Pepsi, then you got your like RC Cola, and then you got your more niche brands like Johnny Ryan, and then you've got your store brands. Like if you actually step back and look at the cola industry, the big players are your Coke and your Pepsi. But as you go out from that, there are a lot of niche products that make profit.
And towards AI infrastructure.
Okay, so to really hedge our bets, we need to look at the 3 ways this technology could pan out and what each of them would do to the economy that regular people live in. The optimistic outcome, where artificial intelligence becomes exponentially more capable and comprehensively substitutes human workers in almost every profession. The pessimistic outcome, where technology plateaus and it becomes clear that trillions of dollars worth of data centers were a huge waste of resources. And perhaps the scariest outcome of all, which is a scenario where this technology finds some useful applications, but overall just continues to be a bit meh. So the optimistic outcome is what most of the big AI companies and personalities are pitching to the world. That is, with the exception of Peter Thiel. I am not really sure what he wants.
You would prefer the human race to endure.
He is a demon. He wants demon shit.
Right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well. Anyway, the idea of this scenario is that AI models and the tools they enable get so good that it renders most human work obsolete. And whatever human work is left becomes thousands of times more productive thanks to tools that do the non-creative work for us. Skilled trades are done by highly capable humanoid robots, logistics is fully automated, and even health and elderly services leverage mechanical muscles and mechanical minds to care for an aging population with a smaller group of actual doctors watching over everything. Eventually, the only jobs left will be those that need human creativity, assuming we can't automate that too. If you have always wanted to design your own video game, you won't need a full development team. You could just vibe code your way through production with AI tools, creating something that used to take thousands of real man-hours. Yes, I know a lot of you actual developers or skilled artisans are rolling your eyes right now. But remember, this is the dream scenario the AI companies are selling. And to play devil's advocate, it's kind of already happening. Even if you completely ignore the current focus on generative AI and robotics, there are hundreds of technologies that have already done the same thing. To use the example of making your own game again, there are modern development platforms and tools that have made it far easier for a single person to put together a pretty good game even working out of their bedroom. The same thing has happened across almost every industry in our economy. It's the reason why our labor productivity gets better and better almost every year, meaning for every hour that
it's one half of the graph, the productivity graph. It looks like we're going to get the entire graph, where this secret magic thing happened in the 70s.
That we work, we are producing more value. The optimistic view of new AI technology is that it will accelerate this trend so much that just a few hours of human labor, mostly to oversee the work of the machines, will produce enough value to give us a lifestyle we couldn't even dream of today. So yeah, even if we lose our—
He did not. He used one half of the graph and didn't use the rest. This is why he's not allowed to run his ad reads on my channel.
9-to-5 jobs, it won't really matter because there will be so much stuff getting made that only a minuscule amount of hours will need to be traded in return for everything you could ever need. In fact, for a lot of people, it could be so minimal that it's not really worth having any kind of formal employment at all. Everybody from Sam Altman to Jerome Powell has said the same thing about AI improving productivity, although admittedly with differing degrees of optimism. And the thing is, the idea itself isn't inherently wrong, but there is a small problem. Worker productivity has already increased by a lot for a number of reasons, including technology. But for at least 50 years, almost none of that increase has resulted in higher compensation for
That's my L. I will own that L. I jumped the gun. I presupposed. Facts not in evidence, Your Honor. My bad, homie. My bad. I'm still not going to let you do your ad read because I don't really care if you continue to make content, but I will own that L.
Regular workers. So then, why would this time be any different? Well, the big AI players actually do have some answers to this obvious question, but these talking points need to be considered alongside some logical ironies that would almost be funny if they weren't so important. So it's time to learn how money works to find out if there is any way for AI to develop that actually ends up well for regular people who are along for the ride.
Fuck, she just taught the robot 6-7. And I actually caught this ad read right at the beginning of the ad read.
This week's video is sponsored by
Brilliant.
Just makes sense. There's hands-on challenges working through problems that features like to start the link in the description. Issues in Okay, so the widening productivity compensation gap is one of the most hotly debated issues in all of economics because everybody has something different they would like to blame it on.
The fact that wages were not pinned to productivity. That is what you blame it on. There's been an increase in the wealthy investor class extracting more wealth from the worker class for the same amount of wages, while at the same time the workers provide more productivity. I don't understand what the debate would be.
Some people will say that migration has flooded the labor market.
Homeless engineer, all I can say is that opinions vary. Maybe Brilliant works well for you.
With people who are willing to accept lower wages for the same job, some people point to women entering the workforce, which also increase the total supply of workers.
Yeah, that's just sexism, homie. Blaming the women entering the workforce for wage stagnation, that's some like fucking sexist shit if I've ever heard it.
Some people point to outsourcing high labor industries like manufacturing or technologies like computer systems that made the same amount of clerical work possible with a far smaller team. Then, of course, other people will say it's because labor unions were crippled in the early 1980s, which made it harder for workers to negotiate collectively and turn the jobs market into every man for themselves. Now, the reality is that it was probably a little bit of everything, because they all effectively did the same thing. Businesses got access to a greater supply of labor than they demanded, and without any negotiating power, that pushed labor prices down. AI is really just another technology that will mean businesses demand fewer employees to perform the same operations, and something that reduces negotiating power as well. A report published by the executive outplacement firm Challenger, Gray & Christmas tracks layoff announcements and categorizes them by type.
This is a great name for anything. Challenger, Gray, and Christmas.
This year, outside of federal worker layoffs from Doge, the #1 reason cited for layoffs
hyperbole works, Froggy.
Was a cost-cutting shift towards AI. In total, since the firm started tracking...
What up, DJ Dub D? Weird that I didn't hear profit motive, fiduciary responsibilities of shareholders. Yeah, it's funny that, right? You went to high school with that Challenger? That's wild.
In this category of layoffs in 2023.
Yeah, no, there's definitely multiple things, Raza, but they tend to converge in a particular area. That's wild.
More than 150,000 job losses have been directly attributed to this technology. Now, I know what you're about to say. Yes, a lot of companies are just claiming that they are doing layoffs because of AI, when really they just want an investor-friendly way of saying that they are cutting costs. But that's actually exactly the point. Even without the ultra-optimistic tools that could be made possible by this technology, it's already becoming a great negotiating tool against workers pushing the gap further apart rather than closing it. So this is where we get onto the narrative of living in a world of such material abundance that the idea of money becomes completely irrelevant. It's a nice idea, but there are a few problems.
Oh yeah?
As I was putting this video together, a group of researchers from OpenAI very publicly resigned because they said that the company's economic studies were slowly being pushed into outright AI advocacy. If they found something that would present a future of AI in a negative light, they would just bury it and broaden the scope of their research until the results looked good. One of them was quoted saying,
I mean, hey, I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow.
The economic research team was veering away from doing real research and instead acting like its employer's propaganda arm. Now, this is just the word of one man, but he probably gave up a pretty big payday to get the message out, and it does align with other reports coming out of the organization. The technically separate organization Open Research conducted one of the biggest universal basic income experiments ever on low-income households. The results were mixed, at best, but the headline press releases were overly positive about how great an AI-powered UBI future will be for everybody. Now maybe it shouldn't be shocking that research coming out of a company with a very clear motivation to push mass AI adoption would be a little bit biased, but the ironies do go deeper than that. Remember when OpenAI was a nonprofit and the founders didn't care about making money off it? Well, according to reports from Reuters, it is now gearing up to go public in a move that could net the CEO as much as $10 billion. Now, if only he
What up, Textillion?
still had any economists left on his team, they could tell him that all of that money will be meaningless in the coming AI utopia. Alright, joking aside though, it's pretty clear that even if this technology meets the expectations of even the most ambitious techno-optimists, there are very few systems in place to ensure that the increased productivity from AI actually benefits regular people. It's a lot of techno-pseudo-economic jargon to try and gloss over what you probably already know, which is that if the people that own these tools can make a lot of money off not needing to pay workers anymore, they are going to try their very best to do it. But that was the optimistic outcome.
Okay, but again, the inherent flaw with that particular argument is that yes, you can reduce the number of employees that you have. However, as that number trends towards zero, there are also less people to buy whatever product it is that you're producing, and under those conditions, then you go out of business. It's the Ouroboros to non-existence.
The most immediate fear that a lot of people have right now is that the hype around this technology will die off and bring down the entire economy with it. Again, as I was putting this video together, the jobs report for November was published after October was skipped due to the government shutdown. Overall, unemployment...
It was not skipped due to the government shutdown. It was skipped because the number's bad.
Rose to 4.6%, with an additional 4.1% of people in part-time or gig work who would prefer to be working full-time. This is the highest it has been since 2021, and it's clear...
Exactly, absolutely, Leftist Corp. It's the number one flexible number. I don't agree with James's framing of it. I don't think that capitalists are intentionally trying to bring down labor and not the other money because that money goes to other capitalists. I don't agree with that. I do agree with the costs of materials and et cetera, are relatively fixed. And the biggest place you can reduce costs easily is through labor. Why pay 2 employees to do a job when you could pay 1 employee to work twice as hard for the same amount as 1 employee?
Trending upwards. This is also before revisions, which have consistently been downwards for every report so far this year. It's not great, but the numbers have been helped a lot by 3 standout categories.
Yeah, and I heard that the Three Stooges skit as part of, like, as referencing the whole way that Nvidia and OpenAI and all these other companies are investing in each other, and that is distinctly not the case. It's a poor metaphor. It's a terrible metaphor if you actually analyze the information.
Categories. The first two were healthcare and social services, primarily to look after an aging and ailing population. The third category was construction, specifically specialized non-residential construction, or in plain English, all of those data centers. This was something that the BLS explicitly highlighted in its March report and has only become more relevant as the rate of data center buildouts accelerates and other government infrastructure projects are scaled back. Now, eventually this will be a problem because, theoretically, we are going to slow down on building these data centers at some point before we turn our entire solar system into a Matryoshka brain.
Maybe.
So there's still like a lot of things. Like, I would love to go build a Dyson sphere on the solar system and, like, you know, make the world's gigantic data center with the entire energy output of the sun. But obviously we can't do that right now, so that one has to like wait a couple decades.
Okay, my mistake. Well, at least for the next few decades, I guess. Anyway, the total employment up and down the supply chain for these...
Yeah, it is surreal. That's the whole point, Raza, is it's not money, right? It's not money. That's the thing. Money is what I use to buy food. Money is what I pay to the electric company. Money is what the company pays me for the hours that I give them, and then I give it to the electric company, right? Yeah, he said it, but like I don't know how facetious he was being, right? Like, you can't just hand wave a Dyson sphere. Don't take it too literally. That's money. Money at the level when we're talking about hundreds of millions and billions and hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars. That's not money. That's just shifting resources around. Money's just a token. In that context, absolutely. It's just a way of making all the numbers do what you want them to do. It's not real. No one's showing up with a fucking, flatbed full of fucking stacks of cash to buy your shit. It's just little... And they're not even real, right? Because of fractional lending, right? 10%, all that bullshit. It's just, they just move the numbers around.
Buildouts is very hard to precisely calculate, but it is in the hundreds of thousands according to most industry estimates. A lot of this construction is also taking place...
I mean, to be fair, Leftist Corp, OpenAI hasn't launched any rockets. So...
in remote rural areas where these companies have been able to lobby for favorable local tax and regulatory treatments. Now, that whole game is a separate problem that I know that the old team over at Micro is actually making a video on, so I am not going to steal their thunder on exactly how messed up this can all get. But the point is, as it relates to employment, a lot of on-the-site workers doing this...
Cosmic, when it was on the gold standard, money was trash. Money is fake. Money has always been fake. Money acts as a representative token for exchange of commodities over time, right? It eases the... You don't have to find a buyer for your 10 apples so that you can trade them for a pair of shoes, right? Like that whole fucking nonsense. You just... Fungibility, right? You trade it for a token, and the token has always been guaranteed by whatever the ruling power has been, whether it's a king or a country or the local warlord, whatever the fuck. It has always been that exact same thing. Always. Always, always. It doesn't matter if it's fiat. What value does gold actually have? Right? Like, what, you can't use it to make plows, you can't use it to make swords. So what can you actually do with it? It's pretty, it doesn't tarnish, it's a good conductor, it's used in some electronics aspects, but it was valuable long before conductors mattered, right? Decent for cavities, but same thing. Guess what AI hasn't done? Made the pizza and wings I'm about to pick up.
its construction are only in these locations while buildouts are happening. That's very stimulating to the local economy for the 2 years it takes to get these facilities online. But if it slows down nationwide, it could have broader employment impacts beyond just the workers directly in the supply chain. Now, in the short term, even if this technology never becomes commercially viable, it could be written off as tech companies using the piles of cash they have accumulated to fund their own jobs program for a couple of years. It would be like if the wealthy old man from up the road paid you and your friends $1 million to dig a giant hole in his backyard. Would there have been a better way to use those resources? Probably. But it wouldn't cause any other ongoing problems, right? Well, it might actually, and
no, it actually does, because how did you acquire the $1 million that you could pay to someone to dig a hole? Right? Like, this is why I hate this fucking channel. He leaves so much information because he's just trying to tell his narrative, and he's not actually making, you know, and so he's using these metaphors that don't actually fucking work. Totally cherry picks.
we will get to that. But right now, the concern is about the existing problems it is covering up. $400 billion in capital expenditure this year alone is a pretty big economic stimulus. Nationwide, according to data from Bloomberg and Renaissance Macro, company spending on AI is now contributing more to GDP growth than consumer spending. That money is ultimately...
And that should terrify people in power. Currency has always been an agreement, only worth as much as we all agree it is. Paper with funny pictures on it tends to be my term, find it to stall progress. Generally against continuing with currency, you just need a way to make it irrelevant. I don't see how you can. You need a token of exchange unless people can just access resources for free. Like, without an issue. Otherwise, you're going to need some sort of medium of exchange. You can change it to some other medium of exchange. You're going to be crypto or fucking bottle caps or whatever you want, any of that shit. But it's always, you're going to have a unit of exchange in order to facilitate trade. Otherwise, you stagnate any kind of trade. There'll be no interest in doing that, and no capacity to export resources long distances. Everything would have to be achieved locally, and that's just not feasible. You just can't do that.
Flowing from the big bank accounts of big tech firms and investment funds into the hands of thousands of businesses, suppliers, and workers. In fact, if we just look at the numbers alone, then
Right, but what are they doing with the empty beverage containers? They are taking the every empty beverage containers and taking them to some building in order to exchange for the local unit of exchange, right? In the local token, right? Which in the case of the United States, specifically New York, like this water bottle contains X amount of water, but is also worth 5 cents. I can take it to a building and it will give me 5 cents for this water bottle. And while 5 cents for one bottle is not particularly interesting to anyone, people who collect a large number of them can then exchange them for a larger amount of the local token. One of the things that happens over the course of lunch and dinner is that there are certain patients who need their they want a pop, a ginger ale, a Pepsi, what have you, but they cannot have the can for some reason. So we have to take that can and pour the soda into a plastic cup with a little plastic lid on it and send that to them. Well, those empties I then collect and I give to people in the company. Usually I bring it to the dudes in the dish room, because a couple of them collect cans. Now they're getting, like $1 or $2 worth of cans per meal, and if they collect enough of those, I mean, $1 or $2 over 5 days in a week, that's $10 times 4 weeks is $40, times 12 months is $480. It's $500 a year. That's nothing to sneeze at.
terms of money being pumped into an otherwise unhealthy economy, this is almost exactly the same as the combined stimulus and troubled asset relief program spending from 2008 to 2009 to stabilize the economy after the GFC. Now, of course, these payments are not as direct, and for now,
A lady complained about my Smoke the Weed Kids shirt. I asked her, do you prefer they do crystal meth? She looked amazingly shocked.
now, the good news is that most of this money is still coming from cash reserves these companies already have.
Fantastic.
With borrowing most
that justifies the entire fucking enterprise, as far as I'm concerned.
Mostly being used for cash flow purposes. But it should still give you a sense of scale as to how much economic activity is being generated on the contingency that AI hype continues. If that gets taken away very suddenly, it could quickly reveal how shaky everything else was under the surface. Then, of course, there is the wealth effect of people watching the green line go up. A lot of retirees and independently wealthy households have seen their investment portfolios almost double over just the last 5 years, which means that they have been a lot happier to spend conspicuously. This spending may be very uneven, but in theory at least, someone renovating their vacation home or buying a 5th sports car is at least giving money to contractors or a commission to a car salesman. A lot of people living off their investments actually have a set drawdown rate of about 3 to 4% for their everyday spending. You might have heard about the 4% rule for early retirement, and this rule prescribes that you don't spend more than 4% of the value of your invested assets every year so that you don't eat into your principal wealth. Now, if your portfolio doubles in value over 5 years, that means you can do twice as much spending without changing your 4% rule. Now, a lot of wealthier households are not this mathematically rigid, but the wealth effect happens subconsciously as well. My good friend Ben Felix has done a series of great videos on this subject, as well as a video he made last week analyzing the current risks in our very concentrated investment market. So if you're interested in a detailed breakdown of these ideas,
I am not.
I will leave a link to them below. If people see the value of their homes double, even though it's difficult to actually access those funds, they are still going to be more likely to get themselves to do something like a big remodel. Now, so far,
No, the GPUs for mining crypto are not the same kind of GPUs that you want to use for AI. They don't mine crypto. They don't really have downtime, is the thing. Is any compute that's not dedicated to training is dedicated to inference and vice versa.
this has actually helped to keep things ticking along. But it's also no secret that a lot of these companies might be a teensy bit overvalued. The only market worth disrupting after burning this much capital is the labor market. Even a small slice out of the $12 trillion worth of annual payroll could recoup these costs pretty quickly. But without that, investors are only going to have so much patience. Even then, it's not exactly this straightforward. One of the biggest ironies in this push to automate jobs is that the tech bros are trying to automate jobs that barely make any money in the first place. Uber drivers subsidize the wear, tear, and depreciation of their cars, and the taxpayer.
No, you're looking. This is the wrong lens. Uber drivers were never intended to exist. The reason that there are Uber drivers is that the automated vehicle, the full self-driving vehicle, took longer to get on the road than Uber had hoped. Right? They used first mover advantage in order to do a bunch of market capture and then destroy their competition, and then they reduced the costs by paying their workers less while increasing the prices and instigating surge pricing and things like that, in order to offset the fact that they were hemorrhaging cash because the fully self-driving vehicles had not arrived yet.
They are frequently subsidized as warehouse workers with food stamps. The financial reality behind taking these kinds of jobs with
No, that's the thing, Froggy, is that one of the things that's driving these data centers is that there's not enough compute. All the compute for like 2 years that is being built is already, like, we watched a video yesterday about this, about how these different players like XAI are they're basically buying the future access to these GPUs or compute in situ or any of that kind of stuff. They're buying in advance for like 2 years. So yeah, no, they're like we are in a compute deficit at this point in time. The models would be even more impressive if you're impressed by AI models. If we had access to the actual amount of compute that we could use. The demand is still much higher than the availability.
Expensive technology is questionable at best. And if too many people start asking those questions, that could be a problem. If these values are reconsidered in a major way, then both infrastructure spending and investment-fueled household spending would fall simultaneously, seriously hurting employment. We have always wanted Green Line to go up, but never before.
We is doing some heavy fucking lifting there. Right, but if this bubble pops and then I can use my capital to gobble up these cheap-ass GPUs, I get we on a deficit, but the build-outs sound large, especially in China and America. Yes, they are large, but it's infrastructure we should have already had.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Thank you, Equilibrium, for gifting out another sub to the community. I appreciate. I don't know what you're on about, but I do enjoy it. Thank you very much, Hobie. But yeah, this is infrastructure that we should have been building for the past 25 years, but we have not. Right? Not just the data centers, but all the infrastructure that goes to support the data centers, right? More fiber optic cable, more power generation, right? It's one of the main drivers of green energy in the United States is these private businesses who are willing to pay for it. That is it's stuff we should have been doing and just haven't. In my world of VR, the Steam frame and machine announcement is great, but refused the price tag because they had no clue what the AI push was going to hit RAM for. Sucks, but it hurts launch probably. No idea. Not my bag of tricks. I'm a multi-purpose machine kind of guy, and the Steam machine just looked like an overpriced computer just to have Steam on it.
Has so much real employment.
What an autistic estradiol user. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but welcome in. Got gifted a sub, first time chat, love to see it.
Depended on it. If this technology
also, this is a space for everyone. And I do mean everyone. Trans rights are humans' rights.
Technology does turn out to be everything investors are hoping for, it's going to take our jobs. And if it becomes clear it can't do that, it will very likely crash a very frothy and concentrated market. And we are going to lose our jobs. It sounds pretty bad, right? Well, there is actually a third option. It's almost become the assumption that this will all end spectacularly, but there isn't actually any guarantee of that. For now, the companies involved have more than enough cash between them to cover outside debt. And even if less liquid players like OpenAI can't meet the record-setting spending obligations with companies like Oracle, the recourse to actually collect on those payments isn't very strong. Nobody wants to sue the next person along from them in the financial circle.
I'm so happy that my lawyers have something to do. I'm so happy that I get to sue how money works and show them how the legal system works.
Well, almost nobody.
Where the fuck is that jackass? How dare some dickhead come along and make me feel like I want to defend how money works? Fuck that guy.
Suppose. Anyway, to keep their own market stable, the most likely thing to happen is that these companies just take equity in exchange for compute time or quietly renegotiate commitments behind the scenes and just stretch them out over longer periods of time. So even if advancements continue to slow down, this could plod along for a lot longer than you might expect. But in the long term, this kind of scenario could actually be an equally damaging outcome. Consistent investment into AI above anything else is going to starve other hopeful technologies of getting the funding they need for development. The joke about putting AI in the name—
It's not a zero-sum game, homie. Again, like, whatever.
Of the company to get investment is true, but a lot of companies do it because they need that investment to develop their product.
No, I get that, because ultimately, like, I can make the same argument about my PS5. My PS5 is a computer that does a very specific thing, you know, and it just has PlayStation written on it. So yeah, I guess I understand the hypocrisy in my own statement. If it makes you happy, then you know you should have a Steam machine. But I can't even remember at this point in time. I know that there's updates for my PlayStation that I haven't done because I haven't even turned the fucking thing on. I want to play video games. I want to stay at home and play video games, man.
An anecdotal example I saw while putting this video together was the startup Boom Supersonic. It has been raising money for the past decade to develop a modern supersonic passenger jet aircraft. Now, maybe you think faster air travel is a worthy technology to pursue. Maybe you don't. But that doesn't really matter. The point is that this month they came out with a new product, which was basically taking one of their jet engines and attaching it to a generator, which they were pitching as a new and innovative way to power data centers. Now, this of course is just one.
Okay, so this is what I vaguely caught a headline about this, but didn't look into it at all. It felt like clickbait.
Example. But startups trying to develop new technologies are all being forced to play some version of the same game to keep funding going.
No, they're really not. Some of them are, but not all of them. It's an avenue that makes it easier to get funding, but not the same as fucking that they have to do it. I have no idea. As I said, I didn't look into it. It felt like clickbait, right? Like, it still feels like clickbait, even now that I know that it's an actual thing. It just, I don't know, maybe.
On a larger scale, there has been a big push towards reshoring manufacturing. This may very well be a noble goal with strategic value, but it's also made much harder by rising energy costs and electrical grids that need to support factories as well as data centers. Right now, the data centers can just afford to pay more, which means factories and regular households—
Which means we should create more power generation through things like nuclear. Or, since Cosmic is here, geothermal.
have to suffer the financial consequences. The same kind of financial crowding out is happening in a lot of markets already. The reason you are going to need to sell a kidney to afford 2 gigs of RAM is because the entire production base—
Welcome in, Dr. Witsend. Fantastic fucking names tonight. I had read about the use of tensor networks making AI much more efficient, which should lower the power needs. Maybe. There's a few different avenues. I think that the using light for your processors rather than electricity, I think is a promising area of more efficiency. I think that like there's a lot of stuff out there that like could definitely help. All the stuff is in the big if true column though, right? Like ultimately that's what it is. Yes, we might be able to use tensor networks to make a 90% more efficient system in order to do the AI thing. I got to see the deployment, right? The light chips could be huge. Got to see the deployment. I haven't seen the deployment yet. Yes, India did land on the moon. So India 1, Russia 0. Check that out.
Is being redirected towards serving this one industry. Going all in on one hand may or may not pay off, but it also means we don't have any chips left to take better bets if and when they come along. Now go and watch this video next if you are still understandably not totally convinced this is—
Nah. All right. Let's watch David Shapiro.
All right, gang. So
actually, I don't want to watch David Shapiro. It's 8 o'clock. I think we need to get to the bubble content. So we're going to save this one and this one for tomorrow. And let's fire up the Voidzilla.
Hello, welcome back to The Void. It's business talk time. No, I'm not on fire. Those are just my GPUs. I want to talk about the state of AI. Obviously, everyone's been asking, is it a bubble? Now, as someone who is terminally online, I have looked high and low for every conceivable opinion, and there are a lot of them, and I created a little slideshow. The state of the bubble. First opinion, Jim Cramer, the GOAT, saying, don't listen to the skeptics, keep an open AI mind, and he's a believer.
Even though there are countless AI skeptics, the market clearly believes that OpenAI can afford to spend tens of billions of dollars on AMD's highest-end chips in addition to NVIDIA's chips. I know that I am a believer.
Now, on the other hand, you have people questioning all the amount of investment in these AI companies. Someone actually asked Mark Zuckerberg, you know, all this money you're investing, is it...
I'm sorry, I don't listen to Jim Cramer or Mark Zuckerberg.
Worth it, Mark said.
Yeah, I know, it's something X1011 I did not need to see.
As, you know, maybe we're going to misspend, but it's worth the risk.
Oh, I'm sure they're cray-cray. I have every belief that is...
It's a lot of money.
What up, Straight Dope? Yes. I understand. I got it. I'm sure there are things that Kramer likes that didn't fail. We just focus on the ones. It's a confirmation bias. Thank you.
It is. And if we end up misspending a couple of $100 billion, I think that is going to be very unfortunate, obviously. But what I'd say is I actually think the risk
wings are fucking amazing, dude.
Is higher on the other side. If you build too slowly and then super intelligence is possible in 3 years, but you built it out assuming it would be there in 5 years, then you're just out of position on what I think is going to be the most important technology that enables the most new products and innovation and value creation in history.
Obviously, it's from a CEO's perspective in big tech. You have to get on board the ship just in case it takes off and becomes the biggest product ever. But then you also have people, outsiders maybe like Hank Green, who are looking at a series of bubbles and saying maybe this is a bubble.
It took a little bit of time for me to parse. And once I did,
yes, Cosmic, but again, money's fake.
It kind of terrified me. I'm going to show it to you as well. What a good little visualization we have on our hands here. How NVIDIA and OpenAI fuel the AI money machine. It just seems messy. It seems like bubble mechanics to me, you guys.
So yeah, Hank Green says maybe looks like bubble mechanics. I'm going to remind you guys that we're doing short clips here, so I'll leave the links to the full things below if you want to watch the full videos, get their whole perspective on the thing. This is obviously a very truncated version of that. I'm just trying to give you a sense of the wide variety of takes on this whole thing. We have Paul Tudor Jones saying that if there's a bubble, it's a very small bubble.
54% of fund managers think that we're in an AI bubble. If it's a bubble, it's a small one. If you think about the bubbles of the past 3 or 4 decades, the Nikkei in 89, NASDAQ in 99, biotech 2000, just after 2011, 12, China 2007, all those were 400 to 600.
What is GDP represented in, Cosmic? Like, how do you express GDP?
Percent gains. The NASDAQ's up 200% off the bottom. So I don't know whether we're going to blow off like we did in 1999. Is it possible? Are all the ingredients in place? I think clearly they are. For me, the one thing,
fair enough,
that you can never, ever forget is that a year from today, assuming that the president gets his wishes, that the Fed funds rate's going to probably be 2.5% overnight rate.
Fuck this guy.
Or 275. That's a really compelling story for higher equity prices.
So there you go. All the ingredients might be in place, but it could go higher from here, is Paul's point, because of some macroeconomics. Then you also have the perspective that actually it's a huge bubble, not a small one. According to one analyst, the AI bubble is 17 times the size of the dot-com frenzy and 4 times the subprime. And then you even have takes that like, yes, it's a bubble, but it's not gonna pop yet. I've seen that a lot.
Are we in an AI bubble? Of course. Right? You know, we were
of course.
into that bubble. You know, of course we are. I mean, you know, we're hyped, we're accelerating, we're putting enormous leverage into the system. You know, that said, I don't see it ending for several years.
That tie is way too wide for his head.
On top of that, of course, we have the opinion. I didn't represent.
Oh, fucking God. I should have expected it.
Too much here, but that it's a bubble and that it's bad. This is probably most spearheaded by Ed Zitron.
The big question is whether or not all of this AI spending is a bubble.
Yes, you have committed to failure. There is no doing this. If they gave every dollar just to Sam Altman, the guy who can't even tell you why you're giving the money to him. No one else has a big business doing this. Even Claude Code with Anthropic, which is theoretically meant to be super popular, $33 million a month. That's less than the Cincinnati Reds make.
Ed's argument basically boils down to they're spending way too
God, I hate him so fucking much, dude. Creator Clash 2026. You and me, Ed. Let's get in a ring.
much money on AI. It doesn't justify itself in revenues. And perhaps the industry is just a much smaller industry than people are betting on. It's not going to be some $1 trillion industry. And then finally, you have of course, the perspective that yes, it's a bubble, but it's good. It's a good thing.
Jeffrey Bezos. Jeffrey Bezos. Jeffrey Bezos. We did it.
That it's a bubble, actually.
If you go back, like the 90s had a biotech bubble, and there were a bunch of pharma startup companies that were designing drugs and using new techniques, and the world got very excited. The investment world got very excited. As a group, they all lost money, but we did get a couple of life-saving drugs. A bubble like a banking bubble, the crisis in the banking system, that's just bad. That's like 2008. And so those bubbles society wants to avoid. The ones that are industrial are not nearly as bad. They could even be good, because when the dust settles and you see who are the winners.
No, Cosmic, the point is that the dot-com bubble itself was not necessarily a good thing, but what we have today has its roots in the dot-com bubble. A bunch of money got put into it, so a bunch of things got built that might not have gotten built otherwise, and now, for better or worse, we have the internet of today.
Society benefits from those inventions. They still get those life-saving drugs. And that's what's going to happen here too. This is real. The benefits to society from AI are going to be gigantic.
Well, there it is. There's all the possible perspectives I could find on AI. It's not a bubble. It is a bubble. It's a small bubble. It's a big bubble. It's a bad bubble. It's a good bubble. And I just want to remind you that nobody really knows what the future holds, lest you want to go ahead and short the market.
True.
Just know that timing the market is never really that easy and usually fails.
Right, the Dutch tulip bulb bubble, and since that bubble burst, we have never had another tulip ever again. All tulips gone. End of an era. I'm sorry? Oh, that didn't happen.
So I'm certainly not advocating anyone run out and change their financial position.
Can I trade you tulip bulbs? Right? I'll give you 10 tulip bulbs and you give me a pair of shoes. That's how capitalism works, I've given to understand.
I just wanted to summarize what has been confusing me lately, which is that I've been looking at this industry wondering, is it a bubble? And if so, how big? And when is it going to pop, if ever? And so far, I've heard from a lot of people, some smart, some not, and almost no one agrees. Well, at least on the specifics. I should say, as I was reviewing this, I was like, well, actually, most people think it is a bubble of some kind. It's just like, is it a good bubble, bad? Like, what type is it? That's where everyone disagrees. I will say it was hard to find people who said there's no overspending going on. I think I even found a Sam Altman quote saying that, in a private dinner, he acknowledged that maybe some people are going to overspend. So I think most people who are paying attention, I guess I should say, will admit it's frothy, but exactly how bad things are, how unsustainable things are, is where everyone just kind of wildly disagrees. And yeah, that's the state of the bubble.
That was fair. And like, there were no conclusions really drawn, but that was a nice broad brush on all of the different views on the bubble. I think that's fair.
So it appears that the AI is a massive bubble in our markets. And I want to go over some numbers and some charts with you, because check this out. This is from the Financial Times today.
Oh, yeah. I don't know who this is, but it came up while I was looking. So I put it in here, and it's Chris Norland with 385K subscribers. Who says that the AI bubble worse than the 1929 market crash, which is bold.
They say how the AI bubble compares to history. Okay. And
yeah, generally, I mean, I have never really had an issue with CoffeeZilla. So, like, that. What up, Larry? How's Larry today?
U.S. stock valuations are higher than before the 1929 Wall Street crash. Let me read that one more time. U.S. stock valuations are higher than before the 1929 Wall Street crash. And they have some charts here to compare. We're looking at the P/E ratios, so basically price of stocks compared to how much companies actually earn, and also to market cap of the market to GDP, right? And in both situations, it depends, what you want to compare it to, be it the Wall Street crash or dot-com bubble, but at least in both situations here, it's bigger than what happened in 1929, right? When you look at the dot-com bubble, which is kind of interesting, valuations are far more stretched than they are now.
And so here's the thing, right? The whole bubble narrative is this sudden peak, right? Where it all of a sudden goes whoop, it does a froop. It froops up and then falls off just as quickly, right? Like in a weird, almost symmetrical form, if you look at these things, which is interesting in and of itself. The overall trend line, like this dip here, but then it picks back up and it dips and then it picks back up. And these are the growth and recession of capitalism, because of it's a flawed system in that regard. And it doesn't deal well.
And there it goes.
And there it goes.
Steadily dropping. Pretty sure that's bad.
Pretty sure. But if you look at this part here, it doesn't look like this part here. Now, this could be because of the way that financial instruments have changed over time. There could be different structures in place, but this is going up in a different way than what exists previously. Just pointing that out.
But
as not being like, I'm not a financial analyst. I did very small work in the stock market. Like over a course of a summer, I was involved in, I basically cold called people to get them into start investing through our company. And and then like I would get some on the phone, and then I would hand them off to one of our, brokers who would actually make that shit happen. And Like, I learned some shit about how the system works at that point in time. And then again, I was a debt collector and I learned other aspects of our system from that end of the thing. But I'm not a financial analyst. I just am a amateur graph understander.
It's pretty similar. They're both very much an elevated sense. And essentially what this is that means the way we're pricing stocks and companies and stuff like that, we're expecting them to make a ton of money, right? Because right now the price of stocks are disconnected from how much money they actually earn. Many of these AI companies are actually underwater and they promise you they're going to make money in 2030 or something like that. You never know. You don't know 4 years from now. I want to make that clear. No one knows what's going to happen 4 years from now. But the issue is that they're not profitable now. And these things are power hungry and they're capital intensive. And they keep wanting to build data centers to, push everything out. When you
again, they're building the infrastructure for the product. I think people are too eager to hand wave that aspect of it.
Read some more details of this stuff. I'll just read a little bit. It says, surging artificial intelligence stocks have driven the U.S. market to record highs this year. Yep. Drawing comparisons on some metrics to infamous periods of investor mania in the past. And we're talking about NVIDIA here, stuff like that. And they were saying AI sector could be in a bubble and that stock market correction could pose a threat to financial stability. That's why you pay attention to this stuff. I know some people, they're like, oh, why do we care?
Again, yes, but also note the use of qualifiers. Media literacy. What are the actual words being said in a particular piece, right? Like the fact that it used could, it's not saying that this is going to happen. It's saying that it could happen, right? Like I can say something could happen that has 1% likelihood, right?
Care about markets. I'm not in the market at all, right? This stuff matters because, guys, like much of the U.S. economy these days is built on this kind of stuff. We're not really a manufacturing company anymore, right? Basically, you could argue we're a dollar pumping country or a financial country, right? Services, these things, it's a much bigger part of the economy than in the past. You can also look at this. It's interesting when you read through this stuff. It says the U.S. blue chip S&P 500 is now more expensive on a cyclically adjusted 10-year price earnings ratio, right, than it was before the 1929 Wall Street crash and well above where it was on the eve of the 2008 global financial crisis. So we're trading at really high levels. Here's more. In data going back to the 1840s, the only time valuations have been more stretched has been during the dot-com bubble in 1999. And I lived through the dot-com. I lived through the great financial crisis. If you guys don't know, I'm 50. And so I've seen all this stuff before. I've seen how this game is played. Like everyone's getting excited. You think everything's going to go up forever. It doesn't. It doesn't. Eventually reality catches up with you. And it's interesting because I know people say, well, Chris, AI is so awesome. I use it every day. It's going to, replace all the people. We're all going to be rich. Maybe some people will be okay, right? But what about the people who lose their jobs? And I think that's a real concern. And will AI actually be as productive as you think it's going to be? This is a really interesting chart also. This is basically looking at your consulting firms and predictions for, AI and productivity. How's that going to help? Says estimates of productivity gains from artificial intelligence vary widely. Okay. So you have different charts here. Annual productivity growth in this percentage points. Global is the green, blue is US, UK is the light blue, and then you got Europe, which is like a teal color. Increase from AI short term. And the short term, I guess, is like under 1% that these various funds are predicting. Increase from AI in the long term. McKinsey's like more the top. They're saying, I guess, 3.4% productivity, right? Goldman Sachs 1.5%. Historic growth in this, I guess, is in productivity just in comparison, roughly 1 to 2%, something like that. So maybe, I guess, if you go with McKinsey at the most, aggressive way of rating growth, with AI, maybe we'll gain a percentage more than normal, I guess. I mean, it depends how you want to look at it. I mean, you can see in 1972 to 82, growth was less than 1% in terms of productivity. Certainly, I will say that some people in some sectors may be more productive with this use of these, large language models and, what we're calling AI. but I don't think it's as big as you think it's going to be. And I keep telling you guys, like, a lot of these companies are underwater. Now, some companies, the big ones, do remain profitable, but not necessarily with AI. It's more their market caps are growing, right? So what this chart is showing you is sort of like where the money, is going in terms of stock. Amazon's a big winner. Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet. And you can see Tesla's in there.
Yeah, but okay. So Tesla is 1.58 billion, but not for what they make, right? This is an important thing. That's not why they're particularly profitable. People didn't buy $1.58 billion worth of Tesla cars. They use financial instruments and carbon credits in order to, and government contracts in order to make that money or have that valuation, right? So like the whole thing is, this is all fucking, like, at least Caterpillar and Coca-Cola make stuff.
If you want to argue that. I'm just looking at numbers. Broadcom, Oracle, Meta, right? Palantir's in this also. But this shows you where it is. And the big issue, though, is what they are trying to really point out with this chart is, if you look at the left, that's the technology chart, is how heavy the U.S. economy / market is tech heavy, right? We're not really a manufacturing company anymore. You could argue, like I said, you're more of a financial a country these days.
Yes.
This is more. And it's interesting when you look at all these charts together, and you can pause it if you like, if you want to read these things, but I'm just going through it. It says AI-related investment drove all of U.S. GDP growth in the first half of 2025. Okay, so it's something.
Right. This has value, because if you look at this, what this chart, this pink and gray chart, tells you, that if it wasn't for the AI bubble, investment, whatever, we would be in a recession right now, and a bad one, right? It would be bad, because it would be a recession that was preceded by layoffs, and that would make it that much worse, right? This chart has value. Now, how much value does it have? Again, like, this is fake money moving between money moving entities.
We've talked about before, to where Trump likes to brag about GDP or whatever, but a lot of this is building data centers. And in some cases, you could argue we're double counting stuff, to where, like, hey, Nvidia gives a company a bunch of money, right? So okay.
It would all be speculation, because you can't really isolate all of the economy without AI. So I don't know of any. There could be some people doing really good work that could create that for you, but I'm not entirely sure. Well, that was the thing, is we did watch a video on light matter like 5 or 6 months ago, and it seems like a promising technology, but again, I haven't seen the deployment yet. That's where we're at. I'm waiting for some deployment. I need to see something in practice.
There's a financial transaction there. That company then buys stuff from Nvidia. Hey, there's another financial transaction there, and you basically get this circular financing. And it's not just Nvidia or whatever. It's multiple companies out there. They're all kind of incestuous in that way. And it's been a big story of the markets. You can see it here, and then you got the essentially spend.
And here's the thing. Yes, like, that looks weird if you view them as companies that are trading with each other. But if you look at them with the idea of transnational corporations being an entity that's more similar to a country, now they're just doing trade deals with each other, right? We trade with China, China trades with, or the the United States trades with China. China trades with the United States. The United States also trades with Canada. Canada trades with China. Like you could draw that same chart representing countries. So this is why, like, I'm not certain that that chart says what people think it says.
And on data centers, and I guess the bet is that companies will make more money, and we're betting on companies making more money because they're replacing you, and theoretically you're going to be more productive. That's why I show you these numbers
Maybe,
here.
Cosme.
Right? That's
maybe geothermal, right? Like I'm not saying no. I'm saying I got to see it in practice. You're a believer. I need evidence.
It depends on the industry that you're in, but these are just numbers from McKinsey. The aggressive productivity gains would be about 3.4%. Now, this is also interesting because this compares to other eras, be it the rail mania, which is really fascinating. Railway mania, they're using the UK as an example here. .com bubble, that'd be the US, but I think there are other international companies involved with that.
So, like, the railways, I don't know, is that a bubble? That doesn't really look like a bubble to me. In the same way as like the .com bubble. That peak comes right back down to the trend line, right? The railways doesn't look like a bubble on this graph. You know what I mean? It's the other stocks. What up, Astro? This is Globus 2.0 or 3.0 or probably like version 17.356. But if you look at the other stocks in the background, that looks more like a bubble than the railways do, right? Everyone's seeing this. And again, if you look at the .com bubble in the context of other stocks, why did everything go up like that? Right? Because the other stocks should not include the tech, media, and telecoms, right? That's what this graph indicates. And again, I'm not doing financial analysis. I'm doing graph understanding. If I understand this graph in the middle correctly, the tech, media, and telecoms, which are the ones related to the .com bubble, are in the foreground in maroon. And then the gray in the background is other stocks, which seems to indicate that the entire thing was part of some bubble, which may or may not have been the .com bubble, but also may have had other features involved. So, I don't know.
And then the AI boom, which is happening now. It says the surge in AI stocks has followed trends of previous technologies such as railways and internet. Now, it is true, guys. It's totally true. When the internet came out, basically you came out with companies and said, hey, we're going to sell stuff online. We could all see that was the future. And I agree. I totally agree.
And the infrastructure the infrastructure and the like the customer's taste was not there for them to sell online, right? People didn't understand buying things online. They understood go to store, buy thing from person, take thing home. They didn't understand go on website, give credit card number, get item a week later or 6 to 8 weeks or whatever, right? Like there was an entirely new process, which wasn't there at the time. Now we buy shit all the time on our tiny little with our thumbs, right? We're buying shit with our thumbs.
Buy stuff online today, right? We totally do. But if you remember that,
right, X1011, I'm just looking at the graph and I'm trying to understand what the graph actually says.
The days of the dot-com bubble, if you're old enough, again, I'm 50, so I remember these things. I'll use the example of the browser wars or the search engine wars. There was a lot of companies.
And hold up. Y-axis to different scales, x-axis to same scale. I mean, I see it, right? Like, I can understand the difference between 0 to 25 and 0 to 150. But, like, he's 55? That guy? He looks great. He looks phenomenal.
Things. I'll use the example of the browser wars or the search engine wars. There was a lot of companies that didn't survive. Seriously. I remember a time, and I'm just thinking back in my head, I mean, there was like one of the companies had a dog mascot. I want to say it's Lycos.
Even for 50. Like, I'm 3 years older than he is, and he looks phenomenal.
If you guys remember, if I'm incorrect on that one, that was a thing. I remember Excite, I think it was another one. Yahoo used to actually be a legitimate, really big, company. That's way back in the day. America Online, I'm just thinking in my head, like these old companies. I used to use Netscape.
America Online is still out there, still banging away.
Netscape browser, which I don't even know what happened to them. I'd have to go back to the history of that one. But, there were things that at the time, like we actually would use, but they didn't survive. And I think this is going to happen to a lot of AI companies. And again,
I don't know that you can talk about AI in its current state and in its investor place with any kind of confidence and not know the history of the Netscape browser, because those two are intimately entwined, because Netscape gave us Mark Andreessen, and Mark Andreessen is a heavy investor in artificial intelligence. So I'm doing a little press X to doubt that he has all the information.
this is showing you, say, the dot-com bubble, how it went up, went down, right? And some of the ones...
But they don't have real estate that can be leased back to them, Larry. So they just bought the name, right?
Actually are still in existence, but their stock didn't necessarily recover from the dot-com bubble. So that would be like an Oracle or an Intel. So right now with the AI boom, it's seen we got the going up part, but the question is then, is it going to just go up like this forever? Are you going to like 5x every year in all your stuff? Or is it going to be more similar to, say, Railway Mania showing here the dot-com bubble? Let me read a historical view of the railway. It's actually really fascinating. So this would be from the UK. This would be a professor there. Gareth Campbell, an economic historian at Queen's University Belfast, said that unlike other asset bubbles, the railway mania was based on, quote, a very tangible technology that would eventually change the entire system of how people travel, right? Railways. Okay, I'm with you so far. At its peak in 1845, hundreds of new lines were proposed and railway investment reached 6% of UK GDP. Wow. I can totally see it. I can totally see it. And you guys know there's families still in today that made a ton of money off of railway. And I don't know the wealthy families in UK. I'm sure there's some famous ones that are.
Cosmic's referring to AI in its current form, right? Which you date back to 2022, right? The LLM and its presence in the public zeitgeist and the data analysis that it's capable of at this point in time. Not AI as a whole, which dates all the way back to at least the 1940s.
And railway, but yeah, sure. But the sector was hit by an economic downturn,
Right?
And the realized...
See, that's different, right? Like the sector got hit by an economic downturn, not that the sector caused an economic downturn, which is interesting.
That new railways connecting smaller towns would fail to ever find enough passengers.
Enough passengers to what? There's a missing portion of this sentence. But the sector was hit by an economic downturn and the realization that new railways connecting smaller towns would fail to ever find enough passengers, unwritten, to be profitable. right? The same reason why your town does not have adequate rail service, adequate bus service, adequate any of that, any of mass transit, is because it is not profitable.
That's part's interesting. By 1850, railway stocks had tumbled to 1/3 of their peak, and projects were
No, not just the resource, the profits, right? People got to make their money back for their investment. They don't invest because they're nice guys. They invest because they want that ROI, baby.
abandoned in droves. And that's really fascinating. I wonder if that's going to be like your data center kind of thing. Because it kind of makes sense, at the time. You're like, man, everyone's, taking the railway to London. Oh, we're all doing that, right? Like that's the future. It's the future, bro. But there's going to be some cities that it's just not profitable, and it's just not worth putting all that money into. And
no, absolutely. But what we're talking about is it's basically the attention is all you need paper, and the advent of ChatGPT, right? The ChatGPT moment for the LLMs, the Mid-Journey moment for AI art, and now we have the I would give it the Udio moment, right? Because I remember talking about AI as it came to music and how AI generated music was just terrible. And I was surprised, since music and math are basically go hand in hand, why the AI music generators were so bad at what they did. And I don't mean from like, I don't like this, it's not good. I'm talking about from like just a technical, well-constructed song seemed impossible. And then the Udio came in and turned that shit all the way around. I remember banging those out. I don't know. You would have to expand on that, Cosmic. I can't even analyze, parse what it is you're trying to say there.
yeah, it's true that, say, trains still exist today. Absolutely true. But does it mean everyone's going to use it? Is it going to go everywhere? Is it going to be profitable? Is it going to be a good business venture, right? For
profitable business venture, these kind of things.
Everywhere and everyone. And that's kind of what, say, this, for example, Elon Musk will say with his cars. Oh, yeah, we're all going to buy 5 robots, right? And we're all going to have these robo-taxi stuff like that. Like,
nobody's buying 5 robots.
Like, that's sort of the, looking at the historic parallel, talking about, say, the
very few people are buying 5 robots.
Railroad thing. It's kind of the same idea. Like,
lots of people don't fly because they communicate via internet. That is an argument you could make. A better argument, in my opinion, is when Jimmy Carter, shout out Redolin, thought, when Jimmy Carter unpinned regulations from the airlines and allowed them to charge whatever they want, as opposed to having a cap on what they could charge, the cost of airline flights went through the roof, and most people can't actually afford to fly. That's what I think, Cosmic. But maybe your thing too.
Everyone's going to use the railway, and we're all going to have it in every town. Not necessarily. It just doesn't make economic sense. And you could argue the same thing with AI, where all these companies are like, oh yeah, we're going to fire everyone, and in our consumer-based economy, no one has a job, and we're going to have robots. But like, it doesn't.
I don't know. Again, you and I have different mail services because you're in the UK and I'm in the US. Our mail service is failing because it has been forced by government mandate to cover the and I don't even know if it's actually failing anymore. I think they were able to figure that shit out. Shout out the mail service. But they had to cover the pensions of people 75 years in the future, right? Like people who hadn't even been born yet and theoretically would eventually work for the post office. They had to cover their pensions. And no other entity ever anywhere has had to do that. Like that just doesn't happen. But they made the post office do it. And I believe they pulled that off because people like the post office.
Doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't add up. And so it's always important to learn from history. That's why I'm showing you guys numbers, showing you charts. Here's a bit of a quotes here. It also says, despite the crash, quote, the railways would go on to dominate the stock market. Okay, Campbell said, given the technologies and transformational potential, I think AI is...
Sure, there's just other options. But that's not the same thing. The volume of mail that I used to receive, which if we're talking about junk mail, was higher, but when you're talking about like actual letters sent, no, because people made phone calls. Do you think that the phone, right? Like, or maybe the telegraph, did the telegraph begin the downfall of the mail service? Like, people just go for the immediacy, right? But they still send Christmas and birthday cards. Mobile phones, right? Sure. And yet, they keep plugging away. Maybe you're wrong, Cosmic. That's all I'm saying. I like, again, I don't know how your mail service is doing, but mine keeps plugging along.
Probably similar. Interesting. And it depends how you want to look at this and how long it'll last. You can take a look here. The railways did stay, so there's two different versions.
They're all doing interviews, engineer, because they're PR guys. Sure, Cosmic. I don't know what argument you're trying to make. You're all over the place.
Versions of this, right? So the railways went up, stayed flat, and the dot-com bubble went up and then went down. And I'll let you guys be the judge of which one you think it is. I'm more on the bubble side. I'm just literally showing you what they say because I do see everything. Like, for example, regarding the bubble situation, the Fed, and this is what the Trumpies want, he wants them to keep cutting rates. He wants to put his people in there to keep on cutting, right? And the Fed's like kind of cautious on this because what we're looking at, and this relates to the AI stuff and everything, is because the Fed's like, okay, are we more concerned about inflation or are we more concerned about jobs? When you ask people at the Fed, and I just read.
Because that's one of the things that people forget about the .com bubble. I had forgotten it until I was reminded of it watching a video last week about the .com bubble, is that the Fed adjusted rates and that Greenspan, I think it was Greenspan, somebody, whoever the Fed was, decided to poke the bubble. So they precipitated the bubble bursting. Whether or not the bubble would have burst otherwise, I don't know. But it's interesting context. I don't understand fuck all of that sentence, Cosmic. So sure, baby, you can be right.
Through this stuff, it's like, and this is the minutes, they're really concerned about jobs. And I think this would be different than, say, the railroad situation, to where if I put in a bunch of railways, does that eliminate everyone's job? Maybe it does if you're like in the horses, right? Just for example.
Not just horses, the entire cartage industry, right? Like, people used to, and to something that Cosmic said earlier, is the railways killed the canals, right? That people used to put shit on boats and sail that shit down the canal. Check out Peaky Blinders for like some really good visual examples of canal boating in that show. People used to boat shit, right? And before they had canals, they would put it on a cart and cart shit, right? And so the trains killed that cartage industry. Bubble bursting is just it shrinking because it doesn't go away. We still have railways. We still have the internet. We still have AI. Yeah, and like the bursting, it again, they say that there was a railway bubble and that must have burst, but that didn't really burst as much as it like just flattened out near the peak, the first peak, not the second peak, but the first peak. Where the .com bubble was actually like a sharp increase and a sharp decrease over a very short period of time.
but not necessarily the way AI could theoretically, if companies have it their way, replace y'all with robots, be it deliveries, warehousing. I think Amazon could theoretically.
Yeah, that's a very niche knowledge, Cosmic. So
automate a bunch of stuff. You can see a lot more in restaurants. You can see it with any sort of white collar jobs in the office. You see it a lot in customer service. So certainly there's possibilities on that stuff, but that is like massive strain on our economy. And I don't know if people are actually thinking this way through, opposed to just thinking about all of the greed. And again, that's just the idea that we're going to replace everyone, which may or may not happen. Who knows? I'm just telling you guys what the technology is designed to do.
And we're going to finish on the second thought video because that'll be in the 9 something area.
On top of that,
this one isn't even done yet.
This just came out of Bloomberg just a few minutes ago. Fed survey sees about $220 billion in bill buying over the next 12 months. Long story short, I think they're worried about liquidity. I think that's what it ends up being. The money is drying up. And you kind of see it happening too in Trump's policies, to where they want to basically get the printing going again and get us all borrowing. And they also want to have more deregulation, which removes protections from customers and has more bank mergers. I know I try to put everything in simple.
Yeah, and this is the thing, is like, is there an AI bubble? Maybe, probably. Is it a bubble that's going to burst like the railway bubble, or is it a bubble that's going to burst like the .com bubble? But it is the precipitation of bad financial decisions, bad economic decisions by the current administration that is leading directly to these problems. Right? This thing here is true. Right? $1 spent on the CFPB gave $2.80 back to Americans. Right? Like, that's how that works. Benefits to the poor, right? If you give people food money, then they go to the local store and purchase food, which allows that store to purchase larger volumes of food. And as everyone knows, the more of a thing that you can buy at a single time, the lower your per unit cost is. And this holds true also for the store. So the store, instead of paying, X dollars for milk, it's paying Y dollars for milk because it can't afford to buy as much, because it doesn't expect to sell as much because of the reduction in a dependable source of revenue. Now, you could argue that the payments to the poor in the United States through food stamps and other kind of things are some form of subsidy for grocery stores, etc. But we subsidize whatever we want to subsidize and don't subsidize whatever we don't. So let's not pretend that that's actually a thing that occurs, right? It's a choice. And it was a very effective thing at moving money around the country, right? And what is it? Like, there is, for every dollar that you spent on food stamps, there was like $1.80 in economic activity, or $5 or whatever it was. It doesn't matter, right? Like, that is a thing that has been removed by putting people's food stamps in jeopardy. By not subsidizing the health care premiums of Americans, you have reduced the amount of money that Americans will have available to them to spend on things, because not spending money on health care, if you have that option, right? There is a cliff that you fall off where you just can't afford health care and you hope for the fucking best. But prior to that cliff, you're reducing their disposable income, and they are the drivers of the economic activity, right? They are the ones who create the motion, the velocity of money. Velocity of money is an important thing, and this is reducing that. This is why credit might be drying up, why money, available cash, is drying up, which would be why the Fed is buying back the T-bills, T-bills, in order to get some more money back into the economy to increase that velocity of money. These are terrible economic decisions that are being made. And fuck the tariffs, right? That shit never made no goddamn sense whatsoever. The only time that tariffs make any kind of sense is when you have a comparative industry that by using a tariff, if producing widgets, right? The widgets, the magic widgets. I produce widgets and they cost $1.80 to produce wholesale to the sellers of widgets, then here comes some imports at 90 cents per widget where they are undercutting my ability. If you give them 100% tariff, now they're operating at parity with me, and it's my $1.80 versus their $1.80, and we can have that parity within the market. That's it. That's the only time that it makes sense. If you don't have a comparative industry, then all you're doing is increasing costs to the end user because it increases costs to everybody along the line. Tariffs don't do what they claim to do. And my evidence is all the times we have done it before.
Those terms, but that's basically what it boils down to. I see this stuff every day, and unfortunately, people don't pay attention to stuff, and this stuff matters a lot to your life. I mean, seriously, really a lot. Headline, Trump's funding cuts put America's consumer watchdog on the brink of collapse. And someone has a protest sign here. $1 spent on the CFPB, so I believe that is the Consumer Finance Protection Board, equals 2.8 or $2.80 back to Americans. Point being, I think it's a good idea, say after the great financial crisis, to have an agency to protect people from getting scammed.
I mean, technically, you could argue that there's a solar bubble because that there was a huge investment in people setting up solar projects. But what ended up happening is the massive number of solar projects that have been put in. Like, for instance, the one that draws my mind is Spain, right? Spain, these people are having trouble offloading their solar projects to to other people to buy them because the cost of electricity is cratering because of the solar. Is that bad? Should we have less solar? Is that a bad, like, wow, three of you came in at once. What up, Old Lobster? What up, Cadillo? What up, Mince? Well, that one popped thanks to the tariff. There's that. You look good. Thank you. It took me 30 seconds before I was convinced it was you or you. Fair enough. Other people have asked me for proof of Globus. Cost shifting also tends to increase the amount. Yes. Yes. There's also, you can make an argument that there is a financial incentive to the for-profit businesses that run emergency rooms that they can then turn that, they can extract more money from the government than they could through the subsidies, right? But I'm not sure how that all breaks down. That's complex because you can end up with medical debt that is on your, credit report forever and all sorts of bullshit like that. So I'm not sure I would need a lot more data and analysis before I could talk to that.
I think that's a good idea to have agencies out there to protect consumers.
I
think
do
it's a
too.
Big deal. And unfortunately, the way that the Trumpers painted, well, there's two different ways. So one is they'll say, well, we don't need consumer protections. You're holding back innovation, right? Just simple examples. Let's use the example of the railways. What if someone back, a long time ago is like, oh, I just want to destroy everyone's house because railways are more important. That's about innovation, right? And I want to build, railways right next to, your drinking water because, again, innovation. And people are like, whoa, don't mess with my drinking water.
See, that's the thing, Cosmic. During COVID, the United States experienced, there's a euphemism, experienced 1 million deaths, and everything kept plugging along, such as it was. So, like, They know they can off 1 million people through intransigence, so maybe they're testing that boundary.
Right, you can see how you can play both sides of the coin here. I come from the school that we don't necessarily have to always put money over people or profits over people. I think you can have a balance of both. I want people to have jobs. I don't disagree with that, but I wish.
Yeah, and there's a bunch, again, talking about the deployment issue, like there's a bunch of relatively promising solar technologies that move us away from like lithium and shit like that. And other battery technologies like sand batteries and whatnot. But again, it's about deployment, right? Like, I haven't seen any deployment that makes the shit really work.
People would actually just talk like human beings and care about their fellow human. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't. They just say, Chris, you got to talk.
I mean, I think you can avoid the battery issue or reduce the battery issue altogether if you had a fully integrated global electricity distribution system, because you could always just shunt it from the places that are overproducing to the places that need it, and it just moves around, and you could figure it out. You could do the math and figure that shit out. However, there's no interest in doing that because of nationalism, borders, and profit seeking.
Talk about the bottom line. That's the most important thing. But I mean, these kind of things, I think that if, regardless of party, if any politician came out and said, hey, we want to protect you as a consumer, I think people will go for that. And I don't know why we don't talk about this stuff enough, but.
Because fuck us and fuck the pores is why, homie. That's why.
It is what it is. So that's what they're saying. They wanted to fund the CFPB basically. And then you got this, and this is actually related to our whole system. I'll just read the headline. You'll get this.
And to one of Zach Epps' many points, this is where, hey, I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. This is where the liberal breaks down, right? If you think that capitalism is going to save us, and then we just need to regulate it properly, that's the tiger by the tail, right? That's being on the back of the bucking bull. Eventually, you're going to get thrown off.
Since emboldening activist investors are circling U.S. banks. So basically, the Trumpers want to deregulate everything. And I know from regular people, they don't really pay attention to this stuff, but this stuff matters quite a bit. Just imagine, and they were mentioning various banks where there's deals trying to go through, be it Comerica, Fifth Third Bank, KeyCorp, whatever, just a bunch of regional banks. There is a world out there where these things start consolidating, getting bought up or whatever. And then Trump and his buddies want to have more crypto-based banks and such. And I'll just say this, how does this relate to your life? If you create a situation where you got too big to fail, and for those of you who lived through these great financial crises, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The idea would be, oh, well, these banks are so big, and even they take all of these crazy risks or whatever, and had all of these mergers, and when they, take too many risks and they take all of these crazy risks or whatever, and had oh, well, these banks are so big, and even they take all of these crazy risks or whatever, and had all of these mergers, and when
he said mergers, right? But it did not sound like mergers. And yet, surprisingly fucking accurate. Oh, murders. I heard murders. I heard murders so much. What up, monochromatic?
they, take too many risks and they, are on the verge of bankruptcy or whatever, we got to bail them out with our taxpayer dollars. Right? We have to, because we can't let our whole system fail. And these are sort of the situations of why life doesn't get better in USA, is like this kind of stuff.
True.
I know it's not as fun to talk about as, Trump farted here or Erica Kirk farted over there or whatever, right? That's what most average person wants to talk about. They don't care about banks or that kind of stuff. But I'm telling you guys, don't ignore these things. I know what to say it. Like, the money matters. Money matters. I don't know what else to say. I know it's not
I think it's important to understand how it was the way it came across of all possible words and all possible constructions. I'm not taking any shots at him for that, Cosmic. That was not my intent. It was the way that it's just the banks and murders connected. It's like, yes, that was part of The Big Short. Highly recommend The Big Short if you somehow haven't seen it at this point. I forgot what I was going to say.
Sexy, and I was like exciting, but this kind of things like removing consumer protections, removing deregulation of banks, it turns into a real nightmare. And if you live through the great financial crisis, I'm just using that example because I remember it gets really ugly. It gets really, really ugly. Everything shuts down. No one's hiring these kind of things. And we're all kind of looking at that going into to next year. And I'll just say this, just batten down the hatches, prepare for stormy weather, and don't necessarily think it's going to be sunny all of the time. That's the best way to describe it. So that's my thoughts on this. I appreciate yours, and I'll catch you all in the next video.
All right. Let's do this fucking thing. Second thought. The rare second thought viewing on this channel. Everyone knows it's a bubble. What happens now?
Is the AI bubble popping? You might have been watching your stocks today and wondering that.
The threat of a bubble. An AI bubble burst.
Reality check could be coming for AI valuations.
Another day of tech underperformance on some.
They can, Mince. It depends on what activism they're trying to accomplish. That's the thing. Not all activists are created equal, right? Activist judges, for instance, is tossed around as a pejorative by the right wing. However, they do activism from the bench quite often. But that's okay because people agree with it on that side. T-minus, the GOAT. Within the context of what was being said, those two words were almost synonymous and got nothing to do with the presenter enunciation. 100%. That's what I was going for. Ton of people lose a shit ton of money. Yes.
Some concerns about AI growth.
If the whole thing blows up, which is a possibility, I don't know if it's going to happen.
Normalize your volume, JT. Jesus Christ.
Pitchforks are going to come out for these guys.
For the last couple months, it seems that all anyone can talk about is the AI bubble and mass layoffs. I'm seeing a suspicious amount of "for the first time since 2008" headlines, and looking around, it seems like everyone is cutting jobs. This might just be life in an AI-first economy, and it truly is an AI-first economy we have here. I know you're already seeing the news, but there is a stupid amount of money going into this thing. Like, Nvidia recently hit an insane $5 trillion valuation.
Yeah, that's a fake number, right? It doesn't mean anything. It's just a highest number. Like, what is $5 trillion?
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? I love the young people.
I do. I love you young people.
They make the chips AI models run on, and they're now worth more than the GDP of every single country except the US and China.
So again, right? I just want that circular funding chart that people keep busting out, right? Talking about the incestuous relationships between these. At least one of them, this one, is a country-sized GDP, right? So maybe what they're doing is less relational to the way companies work and more relational to the way that countries work. Because at that level of money, what other thing would you compare them to? And the market didn't collapse, though. It just did a correction.
GDP of every single country.
I can't argue against that, old lobster.
Except the US and China.
China.
One company making essentially a single product being worth more than, say, all of Big Pharma combined. And AI is way more than just this one company. Total global spending on AI is predicted to reach $375 billion this year. If you exclude all that investment in AI data centers and processing for 2025, GDP growth for the entire rest of the US economy was only 0.1%.
That other graph made it look negative. So I don't even know if that 0.1% is correct.
According to some Harvard economists. Basically, AI is the economy now. Nothing else is even coming close. And that's all very scary because something doesn't add up with this business. It feels a little Ponzi schemey.
Unless you actually understand what a Ponzi scheme is. I actually have a board game called Ponzi. It's if you want to learn how a Ponzi scheme works and the process by which you try to win a Ponzi scheme, there's a board game for it.
But first, it's ad read time, because God knows we're not making any money from YouTube AdSense. Thank you, Google. Skip ahead to this timestamp if you hate me and don't want to support my work.
Thank you. I don't hate you. No, I hate you. I hate you. JT once told one of my trans friends in the comments to eat glass. JT can suck my balls.
Okay, you may have seen these diagrams before.
This one. Again, what's at the center of that image? Right? It's NVIDIA. If NVIDIA has the the GDP of a country going on, then we're talking about something like in the same way that the United States invests in other countries for its own interests outside of direct financial gain, maybe that's what NVIDIA is doing.
They show how AI companies are in business together. To some extent, it's simple. First, a company like NVIDIA makes...
I shared with you the other video, right? Straight Dope, the one that if AI does what it's supposed to do, that it's going to collapse the system, and there's no logic that says otherwise. From the Eastern European woman with the great hat with the belt on it.
Chips. Oracle buys those chips for $40 billion to power its data centers. Then OpenAI makes a deal with Oracle for $300 billion to use those data centers. So far, nothing weird. Except that a big chunk of those...
Yeah, and that's what, like, has everyone forgot this? The entire idea behind the cyberpunk future, which everyone dreads, is that nation states are irrelevant and corpos are the way of the future, and that they operate as, like their own kind of nation. Like, we went from like locality to, feudal lord shit to nation state, and now the next evolution on that arc would be, not something bound by physical space. Like, it seems like everyone who talks about this forgot all of that. What is this? What have you done? I don't hate you. No, I hate you. I hate you. Well, that should do something. I don't hate you. No, I hate you. I hate I don't hate you. No, I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. I like how it's doubled. I don't hate you. No, I hate you. I hate you. I don't hate you. No, I hate you. I hate you. Perfect. I don't hate you. No, I hate you. Shut up, old man.
$300 billion that OpenAI gave to Oracle actually came from NVIDIA in a 100.
Simulation theory could be true. There's just not really any way to, like, falsify it or actually, like, you can't prove it, right? So, sure. You want to believe in the simulation theory? It probably won't change the way you move through the world. The East India Company had its own army. It did. It did. It was an early precursor of this type of behavior. But the East India Company was at least theoretically subordinate to the English government, where these companies, because they are multinational, are in a lot of ways not subordinate to their respective governments of wherever they operate. Because if they want to not pay taxes, they can just move money someplace else.
$100 billion deal that happened just a few months ago. NVIDIA's money comes from Oracle, Oracle's money comes from OpenAI, and OpenAI's money comes from NVIDIA.
And other places. This is not the totality of their money, right? Well, they're trying to. It's going to be made up of robots, Larry. This is not the totality of their money. This is just one example of a deal between these specific entities, and they have other ways of money coming in and going out, right? This is the other presentation, which I feel is disingenuous to the entire fucking conversation, is that NVIDIA's customers are not just Oracle and OpenAI as such. They, like, everybody who wants their GPUs gets their GPUs from NVIDIA, including you and I.
Huh. Now everyone's got high revenue on the books. Everyone's stock goes up. And next month...
Right, and this is just parroting that line that it's, high revenue on the books. Like, the stock investors are falling for a trick, right? They're falling for the trick of this high revenue on the books, and that's why the stock go up.
Everyone is making a new multi-billion-dollar deal, passing around what looks like the same trillion-dollar check. All the while making bigger and bigger promises to their shareholders that the line won't stop going up anytime soon. And the big three, Oracle, NVIDIA, OpenAI, they're not the only ones playing this game. Everyone in AI seems to be doing this. You can swap out OpenAI for Anthropic or Google, NVIDIA for AMD, and Oracle for Amazon, and the story
is a choice.
Story doesn't change. But it's not that simple. That $100 billion deal we just talked about wasn't just a one-time transaction from NVIDIA to OpenAI. NVIDIA is now an investor in OpenAI, and also Intel, and also CoreWeave. Everyone is simultaneously investing in each other, sometimes producing hardware, sometimes providing servers, sometimes developing their own models, and sometimes doing a combination of these things. The lines are blurring as everyone is both hedging their bets by spreading their investments around while also trying to be top dog themselves. One circle overlaps with another, and another, and another, and oh my god, is this a bubble? Not a...
You didn't justify the bubble, right? Like, the bubble would not be justified by the incestuous investment. The bubble would be justified by the outside investors falling for the trick of money or profits on the books that tricked the investors. This argument doesn't make any sense.
According to tech CEOs.
Dario, you've said that AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment.
And I mean, JT, you can't even normalize the audio across your entire video, so...
to 10 to 20%.
According to everyone in the AI space, even though some of the biggest players like OpenAI,
I mean, it could, straight dope. That's cyberpunk right there, right? Like that's if you the cyberpunk 2077 universe, where like you had cyberpunk 2020, which was one of the games that I played, and you had like literal corporate wars and assassins and all that kind of shit. It could go that way.
AI aren't profitable yet, they will be eventually. Or one company will be, at least. Eventually, AI will get so good it'll save us, it'll save billionaires so much on labor costs that this investment will pale in comparison. All this hype is.
But again, if it saves them so much on labor costs, then who's going to buy their product? They never answer that portion of the question, right? If your argument relies that they will make all this money by cutting their labor costs to near zero through employment of AI and robotics, who will buy their product? I don't buy this talking point. Multiple state governments are investing in AI, so these companies clearly are making a ton of money. This isn't fake hype-driven demand. There's real demand for the technology. And again, JT loves China. China is doing AI. Why isn't that in the conversation as well?
Justified because AI will.
Are there sufficient people who still have jobs to justify that position, Larry?
Will take over our jobs. And that's already true, right? A lot of the layoffs we've seen recently have been because of automation and AI.
Allegedly. Like, that's the other argument, is that these are layoffs that would have come otherwise, but they are blaming it on AI. So
both YouTube and Amazon recently said so. Except they're lying.
That's not actually true. Like, AI hasn't replaced workers yet. It's maybe changed the way they work a little bit, but we're not in a setting yet where we need less workers.
No one using AI at work is having a good time. Just recently, the Financial Times interviewed a bunch of companies about this. The executives told them AI was this great tool, so useful, and on and on. You know the spiel. Except when FT then checked with actual workers, nobody was using it. And this is...
That's not what this says. Right?
Just recently, the Financial Times interviewed a bunch of companies about this. The executives told them AI was this great tool, so useful, and on and on. You know the spiel. Except when FT then checked with actual workers, nobody was using it.
What this actually says, you disingenuous fuck, is when we spoke to executives, they would often say the internal tool was very successful, but when we spoke to employees, we found zero usage. Of what? Of artificial intelligence? No, of the internal tool. Because most people who use AI use the tool that they are comfortable with. Now, some of them might, like ribbons. I don't think you pay for your own Claude code usage and any of that kind of stuff, but maybe you do. Maybe you used it outside, and the models therein are the ones that you like to use. I have friends who use artificial intelligence as part of their jobs, and they use the tools that they use outside of work as well. It's when a company wants to make an internal tool that may or may not satisfy the needs of the users, then they don't use it. Oh no, dude, but I work in IT and these fucking users are putting all sorts of shit they're not supposed to into LLMs. That is true. That is true. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the terms. Aren't economic bubbles driven by investment that outpaces demand? The demand is there for AI. Not when you disingenuously make the same arguments that JT is making here, or that Ed Zitron makes in his video, or fucking Upper Echelon made in his video, is that you just hand wave the demand and you say it doesn't exist. From what I recall, the internal AI tools at these businesses are not as up to date as the tech on the tech as the public tools. I would say that would make sense, right? Because you have to stick a fork in something at some point in time and say, this is what we're working on. And then depending on a combination of security procedures to protect your, your data from getting out into the world, and also the biases of the executives who are pushing a particular tool, those are all going to usually run counter to its usability by the employees themselves. Claude and Cursor claim to not train on your data if you opt out of it. Whether they are trustworthy, I don't know. Yeah, like, how could you possibly tell? Right? How could you tell?
And this is consistent with the research we have on AI adoption.
Oh, yeah?
In one study, Gen AI failed in 95%.
There it is. There's that fucking thing. There it is. Right? Again, this study doesn't say what people think it says. We actually looked at it. You do you, boo.
Of cases where companies tried implementing it. In another study of 25,000 Danish workers, introducing AI meant more work.
The Danish. It's a direct one-to-one comparison.
For about 8% of people. And in another study focusing on programmers specifically, AI made coding take 19% longer on average. And you and
Right. See, that's the thing, is like, what is the tool, right? Like, there's a lot of data missing from that entire conversation. What is the company? What is the tool? What is the tool supposed to do? What are the users of the tool needed to do? You know what I mean?
I know that programmers aren't the only ones cleaning up after shitty AI output.
See, Ribbons, you're just putting out shitty AI output, causing problems. How dare you?
Pretty obviously useless for most companies, and will likely only have a limited set of applications. It probably won't be this huge economic silver bullet for capitalists that'll cut costs across every industry. So, why? Right? Why is everyone so hyped on AI, and why?
Maybe because you're wrong and your interpretation was wrong and you should feel bad.
Why are all these people being fired if AI is so useless? Because managers always want to fire people. Now, they have an excuse.
Managers don't always want to fire people. Managers always want to reduce labor costs. And since most people are not willing to take $0, they get fired. To be fair to a manager.
And the main reason is that the AI economy is actually driving a lot of the economic stagnation that we're seeing too. It's not avoiding it or delaying it.
Why?
AI has given companies a perfect cover to screw workers over. Even though the main story right now seems to be all these layoffs,
I mean, layoffs in tech happen. Like, this is a secular thing as well, right? Like, this is not the first time thousands of people have been laid off in the tech sector. Boom and bust.
As many people know that we're in a period of increased rehiring. At all these tech companies, at least 5% of the workers that are fired, quote unquote, because of AI.
Is that like a boomerang? 5%? Wait, why, I beg of you, was 5% of AI projects at companies being effective not something worth talking about, right? We're going to talk about the 95% that failed, but when 5% of the workers are rehired, that is a big deal. And we're not talking about the 95% of workers who are not rehired. And again, I take no joy in people getting fired, right? Like, these are real human beings real human shit who are suffering. What I'm talking about is JT's disingenuous propaganda bullshit.
Are rehired soon after, with that number only going up. And for the rest, some of their jobs are simply put back on the market, just at a lower rate. Like at Klarna. A few videos ago, we talked about how Klarna was replacing people with AI. Turns out that was a bit of a lie. The CEO recently walked that policy back and started hiring people again.
And why did he do that?
Not out of the goodness of his heart, but because AI just couldn't cut it.
Or the actual reason, which was because the clients wanted them to have human beings. It was a client desired thing. It has nothing to do with whether or not the technology was effective and everything to do with the desires of the client. It's the same reason why the automated trucks that are driving in Texas, why certain of them have human beings in the front seat, has nothing to do with whether or not that human actually has anything to do, and everything to do with the desires of the client.
And he's not alone. Every company is seeing that the labor market is rough right now. Every company has told its shareholders that it was a good idea to invest in AI. But nobody is seeing good results. And that would be a problem.
Not nobody, 5%, according to you and what you quoted earlier.
If those two things weren't mutually beneficial. But by pretending like AI is changing everything, managers can both let people go.
Like AI is literally changing everything. Like I don't know. There are people in this chat whose lives have been changed by the use of AI.
And justify how much they've spent on this useless tech. Then they'll quietly rehire a few people and make those still on the payroll pick up the slack. Altogether, thanks to AI, jobs become more precarious and work becomes more intense.
No, not thanks to AI, thanks to capitalists. You communist fuck. Like, this is your bit. You blame it on the capitalists, not the AI, not the tool.
It's not replacing people. It's not making things easier. It's just making work worse. Not only are you doing 2 or 3 people's jobs when your coworkers are fired, AI needs constant babysitting, so everyone left is stuck cleaning up hallucinations and extra fingers and yellow tint. And
the year of our Lord, 2026, and the argument is still AI can't draw hands.
all this boils down to the fact that managers and workers just don't see the same thing. A manager's experience with AI is probably that it writes a pretty damn good email, and a worker's experience with AI is getting a report with 1,000 mistakes that would not have been there if a human had typed it up.
No, it's not. You don't have a worker's experience with AI because workers who have used AI have given their admittedly anecdotal experience back in this chat or in my meat space life.
Managers don't have the expertise to differentiate between bad and good the way somebody who actually does the job can, which is why you have managers telling...
I'm not going to defend managers. However, I technically am one. I'm a supervisor, and I do have that experience. So I kind of take that shit personally. But at the same time, I understand, broadly speaking, that statement is true.
FT that AI is great. Meanwhile, everyone down the ladder is doing everything they can to avoid using it. Except managers are the ones who...
Again, that's not true. They want to use the tools that they used to using that make them happy, right? The entire argument of why we listen to labor is that they are closer to the work. And therefore, they want to use the tools that they are most comfortable with when they do their work, right? They want to use ChatGPT like they do at home. They don't want to use your fucking, bespoke IP tool.
Choose who gets fired. So what about this bubble then? If the main takeaway here is that AI is a front for layoffs, that still doesn't answer the question of what happens when investors catch on to how useless it is. Well, we still don't know.
Again, the investors are being tricked is the argument. In spite of the fact that China has AI, in spite of the fact that multiple other countries are developing AI, in spite of the fact that there is the possibility that people actually know what they're getting. No, they must be being tricked, because if they're not being tricked, then your entire argument falls the fuck apart.
From what we've been able to find and from talking to experts, it seems like there isn't a unanimous consensus on the risk here. On the one hand, these convoluted financing networks and overlapping investments could mean a potential crash would be insulated from the rest of the economy and mostly affect the tech industry. After all, the major players here, like Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon, these are all big, profitable companies spending a lot on AI using cash reserves. They are wealthy enough that they could take a loss if AI turns out to be a dud, and it'd be nothing more for them than a bit of wasted money. But as time goes on, these same companies are coming up with new financing schemes that could be a lot riskier. Not for them, but for the rest of us. Meta specifically has started financing the build-out of data centers in a way I won't pretend to fully understand. In part because...
But are going to comment on...
Because it's designed to be opaque. In the other part, because I'm not smart like that. But essentially, Meta has created tradable securities, financial instruments.
Now, again, I'm not saying that Meta's strategy is any good in any way, shape, or form, but he just said, I'm not smart like that, on why he was not going to, comment on it, and now he's going to comment on it.
Using the leases of their data centers. These securities are bought and sold, including by hedge funds that are now getting involved and taking on more debt to finance these data centers being built. There's a concern that if the companies renting out these data centers don't have the revenue to pay their lease because, for example, nobody wants to spend money on AI anymore, that could ripple through this whole network and into things non-tech people have a stake.
But why would they not spend money on the AI anymore? Why?
In, like pensions and mutual funds. Eventually, that could mean a crash that slips into the banking sector and affects everyone, not just tech companies.
Sure.
This is a hypothesis that more and more people are warning about in outlets like the Financial Times, which isn't exactly a socialist zine. And none of this is being helped by OpenAI already hinting at government bailouts or the state pushing AI aggressively into everything from...
You should have expected that, as we did, right? As soon as AI was declared a national security issue, this horse was out of the barn, dude. Just because they're openly saying it now, it's national security. Again, US versus China, right? China's doing AI. Do you think that if there was some kind of issue with China's AI bubble, I guess that they must also have one somehow, that the government wouldn't soften that blow? Do you think that that's what would happen? JT, fan of China?
Bureaucracy to education, or the fact that to achieve their projected profitability, AI companies are going to need $2 trillion of revenue in less than 5 years' time. OpenAI currently loses money every single time you use ChatGPT. There is a lot riding on them reversing that trend. And if they do, it'll be because they've successfully done the thing that puts half of us out of a job.
Right.
So, yeah. In the face of all this, it is clearer than ever just how important worker organizing is. This whole racket is currently being held up by hype and managers being able to fight.
I wish. But the company that can do the job using the AI tool, the automation, will outproduce the company that has strong union representation, worker owned co op, what have you, right? They're going to make more money and they are going to push you out of business. It's too late for all that.
Hire people at will. The more we can make that impossible, the more we can guarantee that we're hired at fair wages, the more we can resist our jobs becoming executive nanny to the robot, the less this scam works. The more we get people in power who won't be blinded by Meta's quarterly reports and invite them to...
How far are we away from getting people in power? What's the roadmap to get people in power?
Dinner.
It's like, I'm not saying that JT is a grifter, right? It just feel sometimes I question, like, you're vague posting what people should do to counter this, to try, like, you're preying on their fears. You're giving them something, but it's not necessarily something that's actually going to work. It's almost like a placebo. You're selling placebos, right? And I don't know, man.
The less the scam works. There is nothing inevitable about AI replacing us. AI, as it is deployed in the United States, is a scam.
The last 20 seconds of the video. Wow. Way to bury the fucking lead.
It is a waste of time, money, electricity, and water. No reason to treat it as anything but.
What about the AI not in the United States? Sir? Oh. Yeah, no, I don't agree with it either, Michael. Right? Like, obviously, they're doing it, you know, people do the shit for their own benefit. And, like, because that's the way power structures work. Power structures seek to perpetuate themselves using whatever tools are available. Fear is a particularly effective tool when, you know, attempting to control the masses and perpetuate your own power, etc., etc. Like it all makes sense. I get it, you know, but it's like, the fuck. We're gonna raid David. It's their birthday. Give them the big happy birthday. Oh, guess what? I'm gonna be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'll be back tomorrow. It's only a day away. Haven't we had enough of you? Have you? I guess we'll find out tomorrow. And in the meantime, drink your water, eat some food, take your meds if you forgot, and always remember that Shuggy loves you. So do I. Be great.
Think you can just show